Chapter 889. Damn it! Why is it so slow? Above the firmament, Lingyun heaven and earth, open for me. Hurry up and show it to this emperor. F***CKU. The soul-refining demon emperor sensed that the great saint's aura was approaching rapidly and had arrived outside the Dahan royal capital in the blink of an eye. He hurriedly made a series of hand seals and threw out a bone jade. Boom! In an instant, the bone jade floated in the air and emitted an unparalleled radiance. A terrifying suction force appeared. It shrouded Qi Shao and the soul-refining demon emperor. The bone jade forcefully opened the door to the Lingyun secret land for the second time. It could only bring the two of them into the door. This was also the reason why the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao attacked Feng Yu at the same time. There were only two spots. If one of them was not removed, it would not be easy to split them. However, when Feng Yu was left alone, just as the Lingyun secret land's door and the great saint were about to descend on this square, in the system space, the key to the heavenly palace, which was opened from a broken treasure chest, suddenly flew out and emitted an incomparable radiance. Boom! A terrifying suction force that was far stronger than the bone jades was applied to Feng Yu's body. In an instant, Feng Yu stepped into the Lingyun secret land before the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao. This caused the expressions of the two people who were originally gloating over Feng Yu's misfortune to stiffen. They wanted to see how Feng Yu would be killed by that great saint. How is this possible? How did Feng Yu, that little ant, manage to enter the Lingyun mystical ground before we did? The bone jade. There's only one bone jade from the battleground of the martial gods. The soul-refining demon emperor was extremely shocked and furious. When he turned his head, he saw Feng Yu's figure entering the Lingyun secret land and the white-robed man who had arrived at the square with terrifying killing intent in his eyes. A great saint from the martial god overlord force. At this moment, the two sides faced each other. The cultivation and aura of this young great saint was finally revealed before the eyes of the three present. A 5-star great saint. With such battle prowess, even if the three of them were to join forces, no matter how many trump cards they had, they would still be no match for him. In less than 3 rounds, he would be killed by the white-robed man. Sinful cultivator from the lower realm. Get down here and accept your death. The white-robed man panicked when he saw that the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao were about to enter the Lingyun secret land. Boom! He stretched out his hand. A terrifying divine might appeared. In the capital of the great frigid kingdom, a giant hand made of dazzling golden yuan qi suddenly appeared and grabbed at the two figures. This time, the soul-refining devil emperor and Qi Shao were scared out of their wits. Qi Shao didn't even care about the injuries on his body. He instinctively wanted to summon his red sword soul to fight against this great saint. However, the red sword soul did not react at all. The huge golden hand, which could be said to be terrifying and mighty, pierced through the two of them and slammed into the ground. It missed. Under the guidance of the bone jade, even a 5-star great saint who came from the overlord martial gods faction could not be affected at all. Ha ha ha! Qi Shao had just let out a relaxed laugh. Boom! He and the white-robed man looked at each other. The white-robed man's great saint cultivation power was constantly burning on his body. In the white-robed man's eyes, a golden mark was shining. You can't escape. When I step into the Lingyun secret land, the first thing I'll do is kill you. You're the first person who dares to laugh at me for failing. The white-robed man's voice was extremely cold. At the same time, inside the bone jade radiant dragon eye, Qi Shao felt a piercing pain in his only remaining eye. A burning sensation surged, and then a mark that was exactly the same as the one in the white-robed man's eye appeared. In an instant, Qi Shao's heart turned cold. He had been marked by this terrifying great saint. Heavens! Why did he laugh just now? If he hadn't laughed, he wouldn't have been targeted by this great saint. If he really allowed this great saint to enter the secret realm, wouldn't he, Qi Shao, be the first to die? Boom! The sky and earth spun, and the stars moved. When the bone jade's radiance dissipated, the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Zhao's figures appeared on the cliff of a vast valley. There was a huge sun and an extremely cold moon here. It was extremely eerie. This was the Ling Yun's secret land. Fang Yu, where's this little bastard? It's all his fault that I'm in such a sorry state. I'm going to kill him. Kill him! Qi Shao roared crazily. Boom! The valley trembled. Qi Zhao's roar seemed to have awakened an extraordinary existence. In an instant, in the valley below the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao, a pair of eyes suddenly opened. They were filled with ferocity and violence. Then, the valley began to move rapidly. No. How was this a valley? This was clearly a strange, ancient, ferocious beast that was covered in stone skin and had an incomparably large body. It was incomparably terrifying. You're the one who killed me. Damn it! Stupid thing. Qi Shao, if I step into the great saint realm, I'll kill you first. Look at what you've done. First, you've driven Fang Yu crazy. Then, you've awakened this troublesome, ferocious beast. There's no way I'm going to be with you anymore. Otherwise, when that great saint descends, I won't be alive. The soul-refining demon emperor's face was filled with disgust. After he finished speaking, he looked at the severely injured Qi Shao and viciously kicked him off the huge ferocious stone beast. Boom! Qi Zhao's body landed heavily on the ground. At this moment, he had also tasted the feeling of being betrayed. Unfortunately, he was no longer qualified to flip the table, nor did he have the means to take revenge on the soul-refining demon emperor. In another place, Fang Yu slowly woke up. Looking at this strange loft, he only felt a splitting headache. It took him a while to come to his senses. I escaped from the hands of the great saint? This is the Lingyun secret land? The Heavenly Palace Key. Oh right, where's the Heavenly Palace Key? Fang Yu quickly searched his body. When he felt the Heavenly Palace Key in his pocket, he heaved a sigh of relief. This Heavenly Palace Key could be said to be the key to the Martial God's opportunity treasure in the Lingyun Martial Lord's Martial God realm. If he had really lost it halfway, he would have been angered to death just now. Brother, you're awake. Brother, can you tell me why you have the sect master's key that was lost to us Heavenly Palace cultivators 100,000 years ago? At this moment, the sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the pavilion. Then, a voice could be heard from afar as it approached Fang Yu's ears. Chapter 890. Who's talking? Fang Yu's expression changed drastically. He jumped up from the bed and summoned the Sin Throne to protect him. Inside the pavilion, an old man, 2 young men, and 3 others had appeared. They were dressed in white robes, and their eyes were bright. They smiled kindly as they stared at Fang Yu. To be precise, they were staring at the Sky Palace key in Fang Yu's hand. The person who spoke just now was the old man from the Fang family. This old man's aura shot into the sky, and it was filled with a terrifying pressure. He was much stronger than the great saint who had arrived in the capital of the great Han dynasty. The great saint from the Overlord Martial Gods faction was only at the 5-star realm. The old man in front of him was at least at the 7-star realm. A 7-star great saint. How terrifying! 7-star great saint? Fang Yu felt his scalp go numb. He felt like he had just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's mouth. With his peak great venerable cultivation, he was no match for a 7-star great saint even if he took out the Crimson Fire War God set. If it were an ordinary 1-star great saint, perhaps Fang Yu would have some confidence. Ha ha! The old man deliberately smiled kindly as if he could see Fang Yu's wariness. He did not continue walking forward. Instead, he stopped and spoke in a deep voice. My name is Ku Xianxian. I'm called Old Man Ku Xian. I'm one of the strongest leaders of the three Sky Palace factions in the soaring cloud world. 100,000 years ago, my ancestor was one of the two martial gods of the Sky Palace faction. For the sake of the Sky Palace's orthodoxy, we fought fiercely and died here together. After that battle, it was as if the younger generation of the Heavenly Palace had been cursed. No matter how strong our cultivation is, we can't leave the soaring cloud world. Young friend, if I'm not wrong, the jade talisman in your hand is the sect master's key that was lost after our martial god ancestor died. Old man Kuxian paused and did not say anything. He simply stared at the key of the Heavenly Palace, as if he was waiting for Fang Yu to be tactful and return it to its rightful owner. The Sky Palace key. Sect Master's key? Are you all survivors of the Heavenly Palace from the martial god Overlord's force 100,000 years ago? Fang Yu frowned. He had no intention of returning it to its rightful owner. Instead, he put away the key to the Heavenly Palace with a flip of his hand. What a joke! He had obtained this Sky Palace key from the Slaughter treasure chest. The fortuitous encounter in the Battle God battlefield depended on this Sky Palace key. Hand it over, don't even think about it. This was his, Fang Yu's, possession. Kid, what are you doing? That belongs to our Heavenly Palace. Could it be that you want to take it for yourself? The two young men beside old man Kuxian were furious when they saw this. Pressure surged from their bodies, bringing with it a terrifying pressure. Great Saint Realm. These two young men were also great saints. However, they were not as powerful as old man Kuxian. They were only ordinary one-star great saints. Are you planning to rob me of the Sky Palace key? Fang Yu's eyes flickered. There was something strange. Since the two young men who claimed to be survivors of the Heavenly Palace wanted the Sky Palace key so much, then why didn't the three of them take the Heavenly Palace key when he was unconscious? Instead, they waited until he woke up to talk about the Sky Palace key. Fang Yu could not understand this. What are you talking about? What Heavenly Palace? What key? I don't know. This jade token is a treasure passed down from my ancestors. Forgive me for not being able to hand it over. Fang Yu said tentatively. The Sky Palace key. This was his, Fang Yu's, possession. How could he not hand it over? He would never hand it over. 100,000 years ago, the Heavenly Palace had an internal strife, and the two martial gods had died. The Heavenly Palace, which was the dominant force of the martial gods, was destroyed. These survivors of the Heavenly Palace, the descendants of the Heavenly Palace cultivators, had lost the Sky Palace key. Why should Fang Yu return it to its rightful owner? While speaking, Fang Yu habitually opened the interface of the Slaughter treasure chest. He wanted to see where the elders of the 5 high sects were. The elders of the 5 high sects were filled with malice toward the cultivators of the lower realm. They had already created the Slaughter treasure chest last night. At this moment, on the map on the Slaughter treasure chest page, the traces of the 5 high sects elders could not be hidden at all. They were completely exposed. However, an extremely horrifying scene was reflected in Fang Yu's eyes. On the map of the treasure chest, apart from the treasure chests of the elders of the high sects, there were 3 other patterns of the Slaughter treasure chests in front of him. 5 high sects elders. 7 to 8 peak martial venerables. On the map, there were only 7 to 8 black iron treasure chests. Furthermore, they were extremely far away from him, at least 108,000 li away. However, there were 3 silver treasure chests that shone brightly and were right in front of Fang Yu. Judging from the appearance of the treasure chests, it was obvious that the malice surrounding the treasure chests had lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. How is this possible? These 3 martial venerables have been trying to kill me since 3 days and 3 nights ago? But didn't I just enter the Lingyun mystical ground? Fang Yu's expression changed. His heart was filled with great astonishment. The conditions to create a Slaughter treasure chest. Fang Yu had already figured it out. The stronger the malice of the cultivators of the ancient realm toward him, the longer the malice lasted, the higher the chance of a slaughter treasure chest being created. Furthermore, the stronger the cultivator, the higher the grade of the slaughter treasure chest. Seniors, how long have I been unconscious in the pagoda? Fang Yu suppressed the shock in his heart and calmly cupped his fists as he asked the three cultivators of the heavenly palace. Hearing that Fang Yu was unwilling to hand over the key to the heavenly palace, old man Ku Xian's face darkened. However, when Fang Yu asked, old man Ku Xian still pretended to be kind and smiled at Fang Yu. A hole opened in the door to the sky of the Lingyun mystical ground. The key to the heavenly palace protected you as you descended from the sky. We followed the aura of the sect master's key and brought you to this pagoda to recuperate. Now that we've calculated the time, it's been almost 3 days and 3 nights. If the 3 of us hadn't arrived, you would have been eaten by the beasts in the Lingyun mystical ground. Old man Ku Xian said slowly. He was still pretending to be himself, hoping to make Fang Yu feel grateful and take the initiative to hand over the key to the heavenly palace. However, Fang Yu's heart turned cold. He had really entered a tiger's den. 3 days and 3 nights. Exactly 3 days and 3 nights. If that was the case, these 3 cultivators of the heavenly palace had wanted to kill him when they first met him. They had seized the key to the heavenly palace. However, for some reason, they couldn't do anything to him. That was why he was still alive. Fang Yu was sure that the slaughter treasure chest had condensed to such an extent that if they could kill him and take the treasure, they would have done it long ago. Chapter 891. You bastard! We've saved your life before. But you're sitting on the treasures left by our ancestors. We won't give them back. How can you be so heartless? In the attic, the hot-tempered young man pointed at Fang Yu's nose and cursed angrily. Aside, old man Ku Xian was silent, as if he was tacitly agreeing with the young man's actions. Seeing this, the other young man's eyes flickered as he walked towards Fang Yu with a faint smile on his lips, while he slowly spoke. Little brother, we won't take your family treasure for nothing. How about this? You've come to the soaring cloud realm to obtain resources to break through to the supreme saint realm. Why don't you hand over the celestial palace key to us? We're survivors of the 3 major clans of the celestial palace, so we can still take out some treasures. Compared to the other young man's cursing and scolding, this young man was much more tactful. He promised great benefits to tempt Fang Yu. He seemed to be telling Fang Yu that as long as he took the initiative to hand over the celestial palace key, they would give Fang Yu the opportunity to break through to the supreme saint realm. However, at this moment, looking at this scene, Fang Yu's heart grew colder, and he vaguely understood something. Haha! If I hand over the celestial palace key, I'm afraid that without protection, I'll be killed by you immediately, not to mention treasures. Everyone, don't you feel tired if you continue acting like this? Fang Yu suddenly looked up with a mocking expression, and he sneered at the 3 of them. Anger. Fang Yu wanted to infuriate the 3 of them. He wanted to see if it was as he had guessed. The reason why he was safe and sound for the past 3 days and 3 nights, and the celestial palace key was still in his hands, was because the key was protecting his life. The young man who claimed to be a survivor of the celestial palace did not dare to attack him because of the celestial palace key. No. Perhaps it was a little inappropriate to say that he didn't dare. The 3 great saints led by old man Ku Xian couldn't attack him at all. You bastard! Shameless little bastard! You're just a lower realm ant at the great Exalt realm. You were lucky enough to obtain the sect master key of our heavenly palace's ancestors, yet you dare not return it? You are courting death. The young great saint with an explosive temperament exuded a terrifying evil aura, as if he was an evil creature that had crawled out from the depths of hell. Boom! The young man furiously attacked. A terrifying and sinister giant hand of evil intent reached out from the void and viciously pressed down on Fang Yu. This gigantic hand could almost smash Fang Yu into smithereens. "Hand over the key. I can spare your life," Old Man Ku Xian said in a cold voice. At this moment, the three of them were no longer as friendly as they had been when Huang Xiaolong first met them. Instead, they were exuding an evil aura that was even more evil than the soul-refining Devil Emperor and the other Ghost Emperors. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been so scared that they would have no choice but to hand over the key of the Heavenly Palace. However, when it came to audacity, there were probably not many people who could compare to Fang Yu. "Kill me! Can you kill me? If you could, you would have killed me a long time ago," Fang Yu cursed angrily. At this moment, Fang Yu summoned the Crimson Fire War God set, the battle armor, the longsword, the throne of sin, and the ancient chess game. Buzz. However, just as the gigantic hand was about to descend, the key of the Heavenly Palace appeared. Buzz. Light flashed. Just a moment ago, they were so powerful that they looked like they had crawled out of hell. The expressions of Old Man Ku Xian and the other two changed drastically. Under the bright light, they were like inferior beings that had seen superior beings and had no choice but to kneel on the ground. "Chu Lai, look at what you have done! I thought you were just trying to intimidate him, but I didn't expect you to really attack him. This is great. You have once again activated the sect master's authority sealed in the key of the Heavenly Palace." Beside Old Man Ku Xian, the young man who had tried to tempt Chu Lai looked at him and wanted to jump up and kill him. "Chu He, shut your mouth." Hearing the words, sect master's authority, Old Man Ku Xian was furious. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he slapped the other young man's face. Chu He's cheeks were torn apart, and his flesh was badly mangled. At this moment, Chu He also woke up, his face full of fear. He realized that he had made a big mistake. Sect Master's authority. The Sect Master's authority is sealed in the key of the Heavenly Palace. So, you so-called remnants of the Heavenly Palace can't hurt me, who is not a cultivator of the Heavenly Palace at all? Fang Yu's eyes flashed. Whoosh. It was a false alarm. He almost thought he was going to die in the pagoda. It turned out that the key of the Heavenly Palace was able to protect him like a fish in water in the cloud-soaring realm. Fang Yu chuckled. At this moment, the mystical glow of the key of the Heavenly Palace dimmed as it returned to Fang Yu's hand. Without the suppression of the authority, inside the pagoda, Old Man Ku Xian and the others rose to their feet and glared at Fang Yu with cold murderous intent. "If it weren't for the sect master's authority protecting you, do you think you can live for 3 days and 3 nights? Such a high-quality food without the slightest presence of the curse. We would have eaten you when you were unconscious in the cloud-soaring realm." Old Man Ku Xian yelled with a cold tone. Bang! Their auras soared into the sky. Outside the pagoda, the auras of the cultivators of the Heavenly Palace appeared. They were all peak Great Highness auras. There were even 2 great saints among them. Following this, as if they had received an order. Outside the pagoda, the auras of these powerful cultivators were all approaching this place. Immediately after, Fang Yu saw pairs of bloodthirsty eyes that didn't have much rationality in them. Under the sky where the sun and the moon were in the sky, they were particularly eye-catching. "We survivors of the Heavenly Palace can't do anything to you who has the key of the sect master. However, we can imprison you until you die. Think about it. Either hand over the key, or die here. 3 days. We'll wait for your reply in 3 days. Otherwise, we'll wait until you die and then take the key of the Heavenly Palace," Old Man Ku Xian said with a cold tone. After saying this, he turned around and left the pagoda with Chu He and Chu Lai. As for Fang Yu, he was trapped in this pagoda. Outside the pagoda, the cultivators of the heavenly palace with bloodthirsty eyes released their cultivation power and turned this pagoda into an unbreakable cage. After all, this was a cage created by more than 100 peak great highnesses with their cultivation power. Chapter 892. 3 days and 3 nights passed in the blink of an eye. In the attic, Fang Yu was extremely bored. Looking at the rapidly moving treasure chests on the system map, Fang Yu felt that the 5 high sect elders seemed to be joining forces to besiege something. It seems that the 5 high sect elders who have lost track of Qi Shao and the soul-refining demon emperor have already found traces of them. I only hope that the 5 high sect elders can be a little more helpful. I don't want to die in their hands before I get out, Fang Yu said slowly. After all, in the mystic realm, every high sect elder represented a black iron treasure chest. Fang Yu attached great importance to this group of cute treasure chest elders. The Sky Palace key in Fang Yu's hand was a treasure from a black iron treasure chest. In the Lingyun secret realm, the Sky Palace key protected his life. It allowed him to avoid being killed by Ku Xian and the other 2 great saints. Moreover, this key sealed the authority of the Sky Palace. Perhaps one day, it could allow Fang Yu to control the 3 Sky Palace remnant tribes in the Lingyun secret realm. One tribe would have a 7-star great saint and several other great saints. If he could control the 3 Sky Palace remnant tribes with the authority of the Sky Palace sect master, one could imagine how powerful this force would be. When the time came, even if the soul-refining demon emperor and Qi Shao both advanced to the great saint realm, Fang Yu was not afraid at all. Old man Ku Xian, didn't you say that the Sky Palace remnant tribes in the Lingyun secret realm are divided into 3 tribes? The authority of the Sky Palace sect master has appeared. Are the other 2 tribes so slow to react? Why haven't they come yet? If they don't come, when will I be able to get out? In the attic, Fang Yu waited bitterly. In fact, in the attic, the sealing cage formed by hundreds of peak great venerables could not trap Fang Yu at all. One had to know. He, Fang Yu, had the divine equipment from the golden treasure chest in his hands. The scarlet fire divine sword appeared. On top of that, Fang Yu was a peak grand venerable. Breaking out of the formation and slaughtering over 100 great venerables wasn't a difficult task at all. Old man Ku Xian had underestimated Fang Yu. They simply couldn't understand how powerful Fang Yu's trump card was. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to treat Fang Yu as an expert who had just stepped foot into the great saint stage. Boom! At this moment, in the sky, the sound of rolling thunder resounded. In an instant, in the sky above the tribe, the sky suddenly darkened, and dense black fog filled the sky. At the center of the black fog, a door was formed. His terrifying explosive shout was like divine thunder from the 9 heavens, and it shook the heavens and the earth. You old monster Ku Xian! How shameless! The appearance of the sect leader's key. How long are you going to keep it a secret? Don't tell me that you, old monster Ku Xian, will only tell us that the sect master's key has appeared after you've refined the sect master's key and become a powerhouse at the peak of the eminent saint stage? The voice was thunderous, shocking the heavens and earth. Bang! The door made of black fog opened. A figure in a black robe with a sinister face and an extremely young appearance appeared. He was carrying a giant saber on his back. The man in a black robe had the aura of a 7 stars great sacred realm expert. In addition to that, bang! On the other side of the sky, a rolling phenomenon also appeared. It was as if the sky had been blasted open by a punch. An old man in a fiery red robe carrying a black tortoise shell on his back and a peachwood staff surrounded by a deathly aura appeared out of nowhere. The sect leader's key is related to the authority of the Heaven Palace. It's even related to the successions left by the 2 martial god realm ancestors. The martial god battlefield. That old man Ku Xian must be trying to monopolize the successions left by the two martial god realm ancestors in the martial god battlefield. Why don't the two of us join forces and eliminate him? The old man in a red robe cackled. His face was filled with a sinister aura. His cultivation base was also a 7 stars great saint like the black-robed man and Ku Xian. As a remnant of the Heaven Palace, the two martial gods, and the descendants of many martial monarchs, the strongest among them was only a 7 stars great saint. It was not because they were weak. It was because the Lingyun world was too small. It could only contain the strength of a peak great saint. It could only give birth to a 7 stars great saint. Bastard! Old Gui Xian, don't try to drive a wedge between us. I, Ku Xian, can't order the 3 divisions around and monopolize the successions of the ancestors. Black Saint, don't be provoked by old Gui Xian. At that instant, old man Ku Xian cursed in the sky above the division. His aged figure soared into the sky and occupied the area, glaring at old Gui Xian who had made the suggestion. He could not wait to tear old Gui Xian into pieces and swallow him alive. At that instant, the commotion outside the pagoda could be heard. Fang Yu immediately knew what was going on. His chance to escape had arrived. The sharpness of this sword shall slay all the thieves and display my might. At that instant, Fang Yu put on the scarlet flame battle armor and held the scarlet flame godly sword in his hand. He rose to his feet and headed toward the martial highnesses outside the pagoda. After being imprisoned for 3 days and 3 nights, Fang Yu had learned that the pagoda was a secret place even among the tribes. As long as he moved fast enough and killed these 100 great venerables quickly, he wouldn't cause too much of a commotion. Naturally, he wouldn't attract the attention of Ku Xian and the other 2 clan leaders. At that instant, Fang Yu drew out his sword. Outside the pagoda, many bloodthirsty eyes stared at Fang Yu. Among them, there were a few survivors of the Heavenly Palace and peak martial highnesses who sneered. Does he want to escape? What a joke! He's just a puny cultivator with the aura of the lower world. He was just lucky enough to get the inheritance token of our ancestors. We can't do anything to him. But if he wanted to escape, was this brat worthy? Does he have the strength to suppress over 100 martial highnesses by himself? Mocking laughter filled the air. The great venerables, whose eyes were filled with bloodthirsty light, all revealed mocking and ridiculing expressions. They looked down on Fang Yu. To be precise, they claimed to be survivors of the Heavenly Palace, descendants of the Heavenly Palace, one of the 12 martial god overlords' forces. They looked down on all the cultivators from the lower world, even the cultivators from the 9 regions who were not from the martial god overlords' forces. Unfortunately, mocking Fang Yu, these pitiful survivors were not qualified at all. This sword can slay over 100 martial highnesses. At that moment, Fang Yu drew out his sword and slashed out with the scarlet flame godly sword. Boom! The pagoda exploded into pieces. More than 100 great venerables were in disbelief as they looked at the figure slowly walking out of the pavilion amidst the endless flames. Impossible! What grade is the sword in his hand? Why is it so terrifying? Chapter 893. The pavilion exploded with a loud bang. There was no longer a pavilion that could withstand the suppressive force. The more than 100 great venerables recovered from their shock, and immediately realized that something was wrong. Oh no! He's only 1 sword, and his battle strength is close to the great saint level. He can easily destroy the cultivation suppression of us great venerables. Now, he has the Sky Palace key to protect him. We can't do anything to him, and he can kill us. Go and inform Chu He and Chu Lai. One of the peak great venerables reacted quickly and yelled. Boom! As soon as he said that, blood splattered everywhere. A bright sword light flashed in the sky, and the Peak Grand Venerable was cut in half at the waist. You're right. If I inform Chu He and Chu Lai, the two great saints, who knows, I might really be suppressed back there. But, will I give you the chance? Fang Yu was wearing the scarlet flame armor, and was covered in terrifying flames. The scarlet flame divine sword in his hand was extremely sharp, burning all the enemies under the sword. In the blink of an eye, over 100 survivors of the Heaven Palace sect, and over 100 Grand Venerables, had been slaughtered by Fang Yu as easily as cutting vegetables and melons. You're just a lowly cultivator from the lower realm. What right do you have to climb above us noble Sky Palace cultivators? You killed so many of our people. We're going to kill you. Several Peak Grand Monarchs were burning their cultivation bases and executing secret techniques in an attempt to perish together with Fang Yu. However, the Sky Palace key didn't allow them to. Boom! The Sky Palace key floated in the air again. In an instant, these pinnacle great venerables fell from the sky. They were covered in dust and had no choice but to kneel on the ground under the pressure of the heavenly power. Bang! A sword light flashed. Bloody heads fell to the ground one after another. All of this could be said to have occurred in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. At this moment, only a few dozen Grand Exalts were still fleeing. In the blink of an eye, there were only a dozen Great Venerables left after Fang Yu killed them. A total of 70 to 80 Great Venerables had fallen. It's time to leave. If you stay here any longer, you'll be covered in blood and qi. I'm afraid that the leaders of the three tribes, including Ku Xian, will all descend to kill me. Fang Yu didn't hesitate at all. After he escaped, he saw that the blood qi in the area was about to converge and soar into the sky. He turned around and fled. In the depths of the pavilion, Fang Yu also took a peek at where this place was located. As long as he escaped to the eastern mountain range, Fang Yu would be able to escape according to the terrain. Even if all the experts of the three tribes came out in full force, they would not be able to capture Fang Yu. With Fang Yu's ability to protect himself, no matter how many experts from the three clans came, they would all be delivering themselves to him. When he first arrived at Soaring Cloud Heaven and Earth, if Fang Yu hadn't been unconscious while reloading, how could he have been caught by old monster Ku Xian and the others? Bully me, humiliate me, suppress me. You want the Heavenly Palace key so badly? When I return, I'll crush all of you with my great Saint Realm cultivation. Fang Yu left these words behind before he turned around and fled into the forest in the eastern mountain range. In this cruel world of the ancient world, one would either be a cannibalistic expert or a weakling who would be eaten by others. If Fang Yu hadn't sensed the malice of Ku Xian and the others, he would have handed over the Heavenly Palace key, a treasure that could protect his life. The one who would suffer a miserable fate would be Fang Yu. At this moment, in the sky above the tribe, old monster Ku Xian was still arguing with Black Sage and old monster Gui Xian. He didn't admit that Fang Yu and the Heavenly Palace key were in his tribe. Want to search? No way. Absolutely not. I'm afraid you're a step too late. Actually, the kid with the key to the Heavenly Palace had already escaped from me 3 days ago. No matter what, that kid has the Heavenly Palace key. Although he doesn't have full control of the sect leader's authority, he still has the Heavenly Palace key. But I can't make a move against him. In the end, he was so cunning that he managed to escape 3 days ago. Standing in the sky, Ku Xian spoke slowly with a perfunctory expression. As long as the Black Sage tribe and Dark Turtle tribe didn't join forces to exterminate his tribe, Ku Xian had nothing to fear. The Heavenly Palace key. The sect leader's authority. How could he hand it over just like that? What a joke. After Black Sage and Dark Turtle tribe left, Ku Xian would reorganize the entire Ku Xian tribe and tear the tribesmen who betrayed him to pieces. At this moment, One of the 10-odd surviving great venerates guarding the pavilion ran over with a panicked expression and reported to old monster Ku Xian. Not good. Not good. Old ancestor Ku Xian, that kid escaped. That kid killed 70 to 80 of our tribe's powerhouses and broke free from the suppression. Hearing this, Ku Xian looked at this tribesman, who was very observant and cooperative. He continued to talk to Black Sage and Dark Turtle Tribe with a fake smile. Did you hear that? That brat escaped from this old man's place 3 days ago. Boom! Ku Xian's body trembled as if he was struck by lightning. His expression was as ferocious as a demon as he grabbed the great venerables who came to report and asked word by word. What did you say? That kid escaped? He broke free from the suppression and escaped? The great venerables nodded with difficulty. Boom! Ku Xuan was both shocked and furious, and he was furious to the extreme. Ah! Chu He! Chu Lai! Come with me to capture him. At this moment, Ku Xian's roar resounded throughout the entire tribe. However, soon, a great saint powerhouse from the tribe hurriedly came forward and reported to old eccentric Ku Xian. Old ancestor, have you forgotten? As early as last night, you sent Lord Chu He and Lord Chu Lai to capture the cultivators from the outside world who came from the Lingyun realm. They said. They planned to let the cultivators from the outside world end that kid's life. Then, they would take back the Heavenly Palace Key. The Heavenly Palace Key did indeed seal the sect master's authority. Even if the leaders of the 3 tribes were all peak great saints and attacked Fang Yu together and activated the Heavenly Palace Key, they would still be suppressed by the authority inside. However, if it was a cultivator from the lower realm who could deal with Fang Yu, even an ordinary martial disciple could kill Fang Yu. Even the Heavenly Palace Key could not trigger the slightest reaction. You! All of you, come with me to capture that kid! Ku Xian roared crazily. Black Saint and the Black Tortoise, who had been watching Ku Xian's performance with a cold smile, were stunned by this scene. Then, they reacted and their expressions changed drastically. Did that kid really go missing? This won't do. If that kid escapes from the Lingyun realm, we will be trapped by the curse. How can we go to the ancient domain to capture him? At this moment, Black Sage and Dark Turtle Tribe were also anxious. Chapter 894. East of the Ku Xian tribe, in the mountain range where countless terrifying beasts circled, Fang Yu had been running at full speed for almost an hour, but he still did not see any pursuers. Are they planning to let me go? Fang Yu's face was full of mockery. How could Ku Xian and the others be like this? The reason why they had not caught up to him was probably because of the internal strife of the 3 tribes. After all, with Ku Xian's greedy personality, he might not allow Black Sage and Gui Xian to bring their own people to join the search in the mountain range. Fang Yu was right. 100,000 years ago, the tyrannical Heavenly Palace was destroyed because of internal strife. In the Lingyun secret realm, the 2 major factions became the 3 major tribes, inheriting this excellent tradition of internal strife. At this moment, in the eastern mountain range of the Ku Xian tribe, the people of the 3 major tribes started fighting as soon as they entered. The leaders of the 3 major tribes were Ku Xian and the other leaders. Because of this, only an hour had passed, but Fang Yu still hadn't seen a single trace of his pursuers. Let me see, where are the elders of the 5 major sects closest to me? I wonder what I'll find when I open the black iron treasure chest. Fang Yu's eyes flickered violently. The system map of the slaughter treasure chest slowly unfolded. Fang Yu roughly estimated that there would be a single treasure chest if he walked another 300 miles to the east. The treasure chest elder that was left behind had a shiny black color. It was the only treasure chest on the map that had the potential to become a bronze treasure chest. I'll choose this one. The scarlet sin throne wrapped Feng Yu's figure as it soared into the sky. For Feng Yu, the journey of 300 miles only took less than an hour. At the same time, in the Lingyun's secret realm, none of the living beings noticed one thing. It was in the sky above this part of the world. The bright sun and the cold moon were trembling violently at this moment, and the trembling was getting more and more intense. This was because outside the Lingyun's secret realm, there was a terrifying existence of the great saint realm who was crazily bombarding the barrier of heaven and earth with divine power. Boom! It was also today. The barrier between heaven and earth shattered. A white-robed figure with a cold expression appeared in the vast sky above Lingyun heaven and earth. This was precisely the terrifying Great Saint Realm expert who'd pursued Feng Yu's group of 3 from the lower dimensions and had no choice but to come here to avoid calamity. Hee. Rumor has it that the Lingyun Mystery Zone is a fragment of the ancient realms heaven and earth that was separated from the heavenly palace by a fierce battle between 2 martial gods. I didn't believe it at first. However, from the looks of it now, it was indeed very likely. No matter how vast an ordinary secret realm of heaven and earth is, it can't withstand 7 days and 7 nights of continuous bombardment without rest. The white-robed man paused. When he talked about the 2 martial gods in the heavenly palace, a look of desire appeared in his eyes. Ordinary cultivators might not know the weight of the heavenly palace's name. However, as a great saint from the Ghost Palace, one of the most powerful organizations in the martial god realm, he knew exactly what was going on. Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace from 100,000 years ago. He was known as the spokesperson of the heaven realm in the human world. It was like the bright sun that shrouded the 9 realms of the human realm. His brilliance had spread throughout the human world. Billions of cultivators in the ancient realm were proud to become a cultivator of the Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace. It was also the most powerful sect among the 12 overlords of the martial gods' forces at that time. Even the Netherworld Palace, which was ranked first today, had been trampled under the feet of the Heavenly Palace back then and had never been able to rise up again. The Heavenly Palace has fallen. That's why the Netherworld Palace is now the most powerful overlord of the 9 realms in the human world. Just from this one sentence, we can see how important the Heavenly Palace is. 100,000 years ago, there were 3 most powerful martial gods in the human world. Among them, the Heavenly Master Martial God, who ranked first, and the Xiantian Martial God, who ranked second, were both cultivators from the Heavenly Palace. If I, Yun Feng, can obtain the inheritance of one of the 2 most powerful martial gods from 100,000 years ago, then I'll definitely be able to become the saint of the Ghost Palace. I'll definitely enter the divine realm in the future. The white-robed great Saint Yun Fan's face was filled with desire. It was this desire that made him even more determined to kill Qi Shao, the soul-refining demon emperor, and Feng Yu. He wanted to enjoy all the opportunities and fortunes in the martial god battlefield alone. Let me see, where is that cultivator from the lower realm named Qi Shao? Haha. You know that I marked you and still dare to leave the mark on your body? You sinful cultivator from the lower realm, you're really arrogant to the extreme. After that, Yun Fan strode away. The direction he went was actually the same as the direction Feng Yu went. On the quiet peak of a mountain, there was a simple thatched hut. Qi Shao only had one eye left, and at this moment, his one eye was bursting with incomparable resentment. When the existence of the great saint realm from the Ghost Palace, Yun Fan, had successfully blasted open the Lingyun heaven and earth door and stepped into this world, Qi Shao had already sensed it. After all, in the one eye, Qi Shao couldn't ignore the incomparable burning feeling even if he wanted to. Kill me! No way. And you, Feng Yu. In the end, all of this has nothing to do with a lowly, weak martial venerable ant like you. Now, I'm no longer in the ancient realm, but in a small secret realm like the Lingyun heaven and earth. I'll make you, Fang Yu, and that white-robed great saint, pay the price even if I have to give up this divided soul. Qi Shao roared miserably. The place where he sat cross-legged was filled with the lines of a large array formed by the blood of ferocious beasts, which was filled with a fierce and violent aura. It was also at this moment, on the system map, the malicious treasure chest that represented Qi Shao was burning fiercely. It had actually transformed from a black treasure chest to a bronze treasure chest. Moreover, this rolling burning brilliance was still boiling, and there were signs of continuing to climb from a bronze treasure chest to a silver treasure chest. The higher the level of the treasure chest, the more difficult it was to obtain it. Fang Yu was very clear about this. After all, the difficulty of obtaining a silver treasure chest was for Fang Yu to kill 3 great saints led by Ku Xian with his current cultivation. What's going on? The treasure chest has evolved? The extent of the evolution is so huge, it's simply abnormal. Fang Yu descended into the mountain forest. At this moment, he had coincidentally sensed the vicinity of the mountain peak where Qi Shao was. From a distance, Fang Yu could see at a glance that the figure sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak was Qi Shao. Qi Shao? No wonder, with his hatred for me, it's normal for the slaughter treasure chest to be born. However, the extent of the transformation of this treasure chest is a little too terrifying. Fang Yu opened the system panel and was shocked to find that not long after it had become a bronze treasure chest, the slaughter treasure chest had been stained with a bright silver color. An unbelievable guess appeared in Fang Yu's mind. Chapter 895. Impossible! Absolutely impossible. Qi Zhao's martial emperor splinter soul must be crazy. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to do this. This is not in line with martial emperor Qi Zhao's interests at all. Fang Yu was shocked by the thought in his mind. If that was the case, even if the soul-refining demon emperor had advanced to the great saint realm, even if Ku Xian and the other top powerhouses of the 3 tribes came out in full force, even if the terrifying great saint from the overlord martial god's forces outside the Lingyun secret realm descended, it was impossible for him to defeat the crazy Qi Shao. Sacrifice all the cultivation of a peak great saint, burn a martial emperor's splinter soul, and use the Lingyun secret realm as a base to forcefully summon martial emperor Qi Zhao's true body to this realm. Fang Yu said slowly. Every word that came out of his mouth was extremely difficult. Qi Shao should not be crazy to this extent. A spot to enter the ancient world. Many martial emperor powerhouses from the 2 factions were crazily fighting for it. In the end, one of the top 10 spots was obtained with great difficulty. Was he going to waste it? Even if he summoned martial emperor Qi Zhao's true body to the Lingyun secret realm, what use would it be? Martial Emperor Qi Shao could not descend from the Lingyun secret realm to the ancient world. In the end, he could only think of a way to go back to his original world. Bronze treasure chest. Should I take this treasure chest or not? Fang Yu furrowed his brows. Now, in the Lingyun secret realm, other than the silver treasure chests of Ku Xian and the other 2 great saints, Qi Zhao's bronze treasure chest was the highest grade. They were both peak great saints. Fang Yu was confident that he could capture and kill Qi Shao. Even if Qi Shao was a martial emperor's splinter soul, Fang Yu was not much weaker. The divine armor in his hands was enough to make up for this difference. However, soon, Fang Yu knew. There was no need to make this decision. This was because Qi Shao had truly gone crazy. Moreover, a terrifying great saint who was 100 times stronger than him had descended. This terrifying great saint had his eyes on Qi Shao as well. At the same time, slaughter treasure chest. On the system interface, the bronze treasure chest on Qi Zhao's body transformed once again. In the blink of an eye, it was dyed with a bright silver color and turned into a silver treasure chest. In fact, that wasn't all. The mutation continued. The silver treasure chest was dazzling. The most eye-catching thing about it was that it was dyed with a brilliant golden color. It actually had a hint of wanting to turn into a golden treasure chest. Terrifying beyond compare. Run. Crazy! Qi Xiao has gone mad. He actually wants to send his true body here and wipe out all his enemies in the Ling Yun Mystery Land with his martial emperor cultivation. Fang Yu felt his scalp go numb, and all the hair on his body stood on end. Such a crazy act. It was hard to imagine how Qi Xiao had made up his mind. When Martial Emperor Qi Xiao arrived, he found out that his split soul had tricked him. What would Martial Emperor Qi Xiao think? Ha 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 ha. Good timing. I knew it. You damned bastard, you wouldn't let me go. I'm the most innocent one who was framed by the soul-refining demon emperor. Even Fang Yu, an ant-like martial venerable, dares to step on my head. Today, I'll let you, a lofty ancient region expert, have a taste of the anger of a cultivator from the lower realm. At this moment, at the peak of the mountain, Qi Xiao's voice was exceptionally hoarse and crazy. It was full of hysteria, as if he was a madman who had staked everything on a single throw. Ha ha! How ridiculous! You're just an ant-like martial venerable cultivator from the lower realm. No matter how you jump around, I can easily kill you with one hand. Speak. Tell me where the martial god battlefield is. Tell me everything you know about the Heaven Palace sect. Yun Feng, a 5-star great saint from the Ghost Palace, had a burning gaze and a face full of desire as he approached Qi Xiao. He was just a peak great venerable. He didn't take him seriously at all. However, if Yun Feng, who was from the Ghost Palace, knew that this ant from the lower realm that he didn't care about was a terrifying martial emperor, he didn't know what Yun Feng would think. Even if he was just a 1-star martial emperor from the lower realm, a mere 5-star great saint like him was worlds apart from him. Martial emperor. The martial emperors born in the lower realm, where spiritual qi was thin and resources were scarce, could be called minor martial emperors. As for the ancient region, which was an extremely vast and high-level world, the martial emperors that could be born in it, they could be called martial emperors. Even if they were minor martial emperors, they were still martial emperors, powerful beyond compare. It was easy to kill a peak great saint with a flick of his finger. Ah! Fang Yu! How long are you going to hide? You want to escape? How can you escape? Coincidentally, the two guys that I hate the most are both here. It's time for me to show you what despair is. Qi Xiao exposed Fang Yu's whereabouts at this moment. He flicked his finger. In an instant, the dense forest in the mountain range that Fang Yu was hiding in suddenly turned into ashes, revealing Fang Yu's figure. There was no hesitation. Fang Yu looked at the crazy Qi Xiao in horror. He turned around and fled as far as he could. He even left Lingyun temporarily to avoid martial Emperor Qi Xiao. Fang Yu could accept it. That was a world suppression martial emperor. Boom. At this moment the array light shot up into the sky. Qi Xiao sat cross-legged in the array written with the blood of ferocious beasts and laughed ferociously. Ah! It's worth it! If I send my true body this time, I might be able to find the inheritance left behind by the heavenly palace's martial gods in the martial god battlefield. If that's the case, I'll be able to step into the martial emperor realm or the martial god realm. Fang Yu, and you, a great saint, I might have to thank you. Qi Xiao laughed maniacally. However, his laughter was extremely cold and his expression was extremely ferocious. Buzz. The power of his cultivation was completely burned away. Then, it was the martial emperor's split soul that occupied Feng Wuji's body. When the aura of the martial emperor's split soul appeared, the great saint of the Ghost Palace, Yun Feng, who was originally indifferent to Hanshin, finally changed his expression. Damn it! You're crazy! Yun Feng instinctively wanted to stop Qi Xiao. Let a martial emperor from the lower world descend. Even if he had 10 lives, he would all die here. At that moment, Yun Feng finally knew why the other cultivator from the lower world, called Fang Yu, had turned around and fled, and his face was filled with shock. It turned out that he had known all along. Qi Shao was crazy. He wanted to let his martial emperor realm original body descend. A martial emperor from the lower world descend. Damn it. If the martial god battlefield appears, I won't be able to defeat him with my cultivation. Yun Feng attacked frantically, trying to stop Qi Zhao's arrangement. However, it was too late. Chapter 896. Speaking of which, it was a bit ridiculous. A world suppression martial emperor was about to descend. Yun Feng, who was from the Ghost Palace, should be thinking about how to survive. Yet, he was still thinking about how to compete with the martial emperor for the opportunity in the martial god battlefield. If Fang Yu knew what Yun Fan was thinking, he would be very doubtful about how Yun Fan cultivated all the way to the Great Saint Realm. I have to think of a way to drag more people down with me. I can't face this martial emperor realm expert alone. Otherwise, even if I use the Crimson Fire War God set, I might not have a chance. Fang Yu ran frantically. At this moment, the slaughter treasure chest. On the system map, the silver treasure chest that represented Qi Shao had completely disappeared. Instead, it was replaced. It represented the real martial emperor Qi Shao, who had descended from another world. A martial emperor expert. Even if Qi Shao was inexperienced. A 1-star martial emperor. But he still descended. He was an absolute expert of the Lingyun world. Boom! At the peak of the mountain, a dazzling red light beam shot into the sky and shattered the sky of the Lingyun world. It pierced through the world where Fang Yu and the others came from. In a majestic hall, martial emperor Qi Shao, who had been sleeping for a long time, slowly opened his eyes. He frowned as he felt the aura from the split soul. Trash. It's a split soul that I, Qi Shao, split. What a trash. How long has it been and I was forced to use my trump card? Martial Emperor Qi Shao cursed fiercely. But, even so, that was also Qi Zhao's soul fragment. It could be said that the humiliation that Scarlet Firmament's subsoul suffered in the ancient domain was the humiliation that he, Martial Emperor Scarlet Firmament, had to bear. It was enough for him to descend and wash away this humiliation. The only thing that made Martial Emperor Qi Shao feel embarrassed was that he had wasted the ancient world entry that he had fought so hard for. If he wanted to step into the ancient world again, he would have to wait for at least another 5,000 years. It's fate. In the dazzling red light, Martial Emperor Qi Shao stepped into it and descended into the Lingyun world. Boom! On this day, the Lingyun world trembled. In the sky, that bright sun was still a cold moon. As Martial Emperor Qi Shao was about to descend, it was no longer as simple as trembling. Thunderous booms rang out above the bright sun and the cold moon, exploding in the ears of all the living beings in the world. Regardless of whether it was the remnants of Ku Xian, Black Saint, or Black Turtle celestial palaces, the Sage Realm ferocious beasts hiding in the endless mountain range, the soul-refining demon emperor who had broken into the Sage Realm, or the elders of the 5 high sects who were at the peak of the grand venerable realm. At this moment, they all looked at the crimson beam of light that shot into the sky and pierced through 2 worlds. Their faces were filled with horror. Oh my God! This aura, could it be that this old man sensed wrongly? Why do I feel like I'm facing an old ancestor of a sect? Emperor Realm aura. There's an Emperor Realm expert. No, this isn't an Emperor Realm expert. It was the unique aura of a small Emperor Realm expert in the lower realm. A martial emperor from the lower realm had arrived? How is this possible? The elders of the 5 exalted sects exclaimed. In the territory of Ku Xian's 3 tribes, Black Saint, Ku Xian, and Black Turtle celestial palaces, the 3 7-star great saints, all looked gloomy and cold. Damn it! How dare a cultivator from the lower realm bully us, the remnants of the heavenly palace? If the heavenly palace was still here 100,000 years ago, even a martial emperor from the lower realm could only kneel in front of us. Hee! How greedy! You didn't hesitate to descend with your true body of a martial emperor just to get the inheritance of the two most powerful martial gods of our heavenly palace? Ku Xian and the other two looked gloomy, and their hearts were filled with rage. In their opinion, apart from the three tribes, the rest of the cultivators in the Lingyun secret area were not from the heavenly palace. They were all heretics. Heretics who wanted to get their hands on the inheritance of the heavenly palace. They should all be killed. The secret treasure of the martial god realm? If that's the case, the martial god battlefield in the Lingyun secret area will most likely appear. Then this trip will be worth it. In the crimson beam of light, Martial Emperor Qi Zhao's expression changed drastically after he received the remnant of his soul. He was so excited that he could not control himself. If the martial god battlefield really appeared, not to mention sacrificing a soul fragment and a slot in the ancient region, even if he had to wait for 50,000 years for 10 soul fragments, he was willing to do so. Perhaps after this, he could become a peak martial emperor or even a martial god. The legend of the heavenly palace. Xiao Gusheng was a cultivator who had come from the ancient realm 5,000 years ago, and he had told him a lot about it. The heavenly palace, the strongest force in the human realm 100,000 years ago. Apart from the underworld, which had another martial god realm expert, the other 11 martial god overlords could barely compete with the heavenly palace. The other 10 martial god overlords combined could not even defeat the heavenly palace. That was an ultimate martial god. As long as they were not facing an ultimate martial god of the same level, it would not be a problem for an ultimate martial god to wipe out the 10 martial god overlords. If the martial god battlefield doesn't show up, I'll shatter the entire Lingyun mystical land when I leave. If I can't get it on this trip, no one else should dream of getting it. Qi Zhao's face was filled with disdain. He stepped forward and was about to enter the Lingyun secret area. However, at this moment, a long sigh could be heard. Sigh. Such a vicious character. No wonder you're only a martial emperor from the lower realm. The ultimate martial god inheritance that I left behind will not welcome you. Get out of this place. Get out of here. An ancient voice rang out from the crack in the bright sun in the sky. Boom. In an instant, Martial Emperor Qi Zhao's expression changed as he was sent flying out of the area. He was a martial emperor, but he had been sent flying without any ability to resist. Martial God Realm. Absolute Martial God Realm. This is the remnant consciousness of a Martial God Realm expert. Martial Emperor Qi Zhao exclaimed in shock. His face was filled with astonishment. At this moment, the entire Lingyun secret area was in an uproar. Boom. The noise was louder than the previous one. Even the sacred realm beasts living in the desolate mountain range were excited at this moment. They looked up at the bright sun and the cold moon above their heads. The ancestor is here. The ancestor is here. Now, the heavenly palace key that represents the sect leader's authority and the ancestor's remnant consciousness is here. These are all good omens. There's hope for the heavenly palace. There's hope for the heavenly palace survivors to get rid of the curse and return to the ancient region. Today, the inheritance and treasures left behind by our ancestors will be guarded by the 3 tribes. We will not let outsiders touch them. Ku Xian, Black Saint, and Gui Xian, the 3 7-star great saints, roared in unison. They had been fighting for thousands of years. This was the first time they were so united. Chapter 897. First, Martial Emperor Qi Zhao came to the Lingyun realm to seek revenge and kill everyone in the Lingyun realm. Then, a martial god's remnant will showed up and drove martial Emperor Qi Shao away, which shocked the living beings in the Lingyun realm. Until now, the native living beings and the foreign cultivators in the Lingyun realm, they had just learned something. That was, the legends were all true. The strongest martial god's force in the human world 100,000 years ago, the heavenly palace. They had really fought until the heavens fell and the earth split apart, and they had all perished here. The martial god's battlefield and the martial god's secret treasure were indeed here. Besides, 100,000 years ago, 2 of the 3 strongest martial gods had left their treasures here. Almost 1,000,000 years had passed since the ancient times. Apart from the heaven realm, which was superior to the 9 realms in the human world and almost never came to the lower realms, there were only 3 strongest martial gods in the human world. 2 of them had died here. This showed how precious the martial god's secret treasure was. If the news spread, many martial gods' forces in the 9 realms would be shocked. Even a force as strong as the first martial god's force, the underworld, would be interested and send a martial god to dig out the treasures of their enemy. The martial god's secret treasure doesn't need to show up. Since the ancient times, it has always been above the sky. Inside the bright sun and the cold moon. In the dense woods and mountains. Fang Yu stopped, looked up at the sky, and said faintly, "It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the entire 9 realms of the mortal realm would go crazy over the inheritance and treasures hidden within the bright sun and the cold moon. After all, among the 3 strongest martial gods, the only one who survived was martial god Tianming. He had set off to the heaven realm 80,000 years ago and never came down. Martial god Tianming did not die and set foot in the heaven realm. Naturally, he did not leave any inheritances in the 9 realms. This meant the 2 strongest inheritances of the martial gods here were the 2 strongest inheritances in the human world. There was no other. Sun and moon in the sky. Even in other secret realms or small worlds, such a phenomenon is almost impossible to appear. As a result, the cultivators who set foot in this world, as well as the native living beings who have lived here for many years, all subconsciously ignored this strange scene. Is this the method of the strongest martial god who is above the 9-star martial god? Even if it's just a remnant thought, it can still affect one's mind. Yun Feng, who came from the ghost palace, felt a surge in her heart. She hated that she couldn't fly to the bright sun and the cold moon immediately. At this moment, only then did Yun Feng and the other cultivators from outside the secret realm realize all of this. 2 powerful martial gods. According to the rumors, when they reached the martial god realm, their titles were the Bright Sun Martial God and the Frost Moon Martial God. After they defeated all the martial gods of their generation, they were respectfully called the strongest martial god. Only then did they change their titles to Celestial Martial Gods and Black Heaven Martial Gods. Even Martial God Tianming from the underworld, among the titled Battle Pet Warriors, both of them were called Heaven. He was above the 9-star martial god realm, but had not yet stepped into the level above the martial god realm. Ha 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 ha! The succession of the Heaven Palace. The lost treasure of a martial god. It's famous in the 9 regions. It's really the turn of fortune for us juniors. Serves us right for being lucky. At that instant, a burst of wild laughter could be heard between the heavens and earth. Following this, under everyone's gaze, a disciple of the Heavenly Saber sect who was at the peak of the martial royal realm soared into the sky. His figure was as fast as lightning as he flew toward the bright sun. Following this, the rest of the disciples of the 5 upper sects who had come for the trial collected their thoughts too, as they were afraid that they would fall behind the others. At that instant, disciples of the Ghost Prison, disciples of the Scarlet Snow sect, disciples of the Heavenly Saber sect, disciples of the Heaven Resentment Pavilion, disciples of the Hanging Sword Mountain, they all flew toward the bright sun and the cold moon in a frenzy. However, In the Lingyun realm, these martial dominator realm and martial ancestor realm disciples of the upper sex were only weak juniors. Martial highness realm cultivators like the elders of their sex, the soul-refining demon monarch, Fang Yu, and the experts of the three tribes had yet to say anything. In the end, these juniors who were only in the three realms of the martial god realm, and had not even reached the three mystical powers realm, were planning to enter the martial god's secret treasure first. How laughable was this scene! Not only Yun Feng, the soul-refining demon monarch, and the experts of the three tribes were filled with murderous intent toward the disciples. Even the elders of the five upper sects had the urge to intervene and kill these juniors who were full of themselves. How could these disciples possibly have a chance to obtain such a great fortune? Even if they were master and disciple, they would most likely fight to the death in front of such a great fortune, let alone the relationship between the elders and the disciples. Die. Trying to get your hands on the martial god's secret treasure, do you really think you're worthy? Yun Feng burst out laughing as he flicked his finger, trying to take the lives of these scornful juniors. However, following this, a terrifying sight took place. There was no need for Yun Feng to intervene. Under the bright sun and the cold moon in the sky, wisps of crimson sun flame and icy night mystical ice descended, following a series of cries of agony. The disciples who were heading toward the martial god's secret treasure first turned into ashes and froze into powder under the crimson sun flame and icy night mystical ice. Gasp! Crimson sun flame. 10,000 frost godly ice. Meanwhile, in the Ling Yun mystery land, many experts sucked in a breath of cold air. Buzz. Some of the experts even felt despair. Crimson sun flame and 10,000 frost godly ice. These were all martial god realm attacks, not to mention the strongest 7-star great saint present. Even the martial monarch from the lower realm, the martial monarch Qi Shao, did not dare to act recklessly in front of these two items. The reason being that even a martial monarch would die facing these two divine flames and divine ice. Nothing would be left of them. They would end up the same as the juniors. There's no way to go through them. Could it be that the remnant thoughts of the two martial gods did not allow the juniors to take their successions? Countless people thought to themselves. However, at that instant, the heavenly palace key in Fang Yu's pocket began to glow slightly. A strange feeling arose in Fang Yu's heart. It was a fascinating feeling. No one had told him. However, he was sure. He could choose any one of the treasures left behind by the two strongest martial gods before him to explore them. However, no matter which secret treasure he chose, as long as he chose, the heavenly palace key would disappear from his hand and enter the secret treasure of the martial god. If it were anyone else, they would have given up on the heavenly palace key and entered one of the successions. However, Fang Yu would not do the same. Chapter 898. Ha ha! A choice? How interesting! It seems that after 100,000 years, the remnant thoughts of these two supreme martial gods are still fighting. No wonder after so many years, no one has been able to take away the inheritance left behind by these two supreme martial gods. Looking at the bright sun and the cold moon, Fang Yu laughed, but his laughter was full of mockery. These two strongest martial gods were utterly hilarious. I won't choose either. Giving up the authority of the master of the heavenly palace to choose the inheritance of two supreme martial gods? That's stupid beyond compare. If I'm not wrong, as long as I have this heavenly palace key in my hand, even if you are the remnant thoughts of the supreme martial gods of the heavenly palace, you won't dare to hurt me. Fang Yu laughed wantonly. This was just a guess that no one could give him an answer. It was hard to imagine. Such a significant and valuable heavenly palace key was actually drawn from a black iron treasure chest. This was unbelievable, especially since the owner of this black iron treasure chest was a peak martial grand master of the Mu Palace's guard captain. Boom! Heaven and earth trembled, and the firmament trembled. At this moment the entire Lingyun world was shaking violently. Then, the divine fire of red sun and the divine ice of 10,000 chills surged out, each occupying a part of the sky. Buzz! The scene was in an uproar, shaking endlessly. In Lingyun world, all the intelligent creatures whose cultivation had reached the transcendent realm all changed their expressions at this moment. Oh my God! There's so much divine fire of red sun and divine ice of 10,000 chills. If they all fall from the sky, wouldn't it be a world-ending catastrophe? No matter who is unlucky enough to come into contact with it, they will end up without a corpse left behind. Countless people cried out in horror. However, no one noticed it. In a certain mountain forest, there was a young figure holding a jade talisman in one hand, and the other hand was reaching for the divine fire of red sun above his head. Buzz! Buzz! The void trembled. Sharp sword chi appeared, ready to be released at any time, ready to cut off the young man's arm if the situation was not good. I'll give it a try. Let's see if the two most powerful martial gods of the heavenly palace dare to touch me, the temporary ruler of the heavenly palace. Fang Yu was a little terrified, but he also couldn't suppress his excitement. With a crazed look on his face, he fiercely grasped at the scarlet sun divine fire. At the same time, sword chi shot out from the air towards his right arm. Bang! However, the crimson sun divine fire and the surging sword chi all dissipated. Fang Yu could feel that the bright sun and the cold moon in the sky were like two pairs of furious eyes glaring at him. The remnant thoughts of the two strongest martial gods were furious at Fang Yu. If they were able to kill Fang Yu, the two remnant wills would have already made their move. Hee. I guessed right. I made the right bet. In this world of laws belonging to the Celestial Palace, it's like I'm a cheater. Since that's the case, we should take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate the hidden dangers. It's time to settle our grudges. Fang Yu sneered. His robe fluttered even though there was no wind, wrapping around his body. His eyes quietly scanned the figures standing in the sky, looking for something. Fang Yu was looking for the soul-refining demon emperor. Qi Shao had been defeated and killed. From now on, he had nothing to do with the ancient domain world. Back then, in the Dahan royal capital, there was another person besides Qi Shao who had betrayed Fang Yu and even wanted to kill Fang Yu. The soul-refining demon emperor. He had come to the ancient domain world with the martial emperor primary soul of a foreign race. He was a lunatic who had gambled everything. Gambled everything? Hee. Today I'll make you lose everything. Fang Yu's eyes were filled with hatred and anger. Compared to the people of the Ku-Xian tribe, Fang Yu wanted to kill the damned soul-refining demon emperor first. How dare he betray him? Not long after, Fang Yu found the soul-refining demon emperor. The soul-refining demon emperor was sitting cross-legged in an inconspicuous cave at the bottom of a dark mountain. The corpses of 9 Saint Stage fierce beasts were placed in front of him. He was forcefully refining the blood essences of the Saint Stage fierce beasts to break through to the Great Saint Stage. Breaking through to the Great Saint Stage? But you're already a dead man in my eyes. Just as Fang Yu was walking toward the soul-refining demon emperor, the bright sun and cold moon in the sky above him suddenly emitted violent fluctuations. Following the appearance of the crimson sun divine flame and the myriad chill divine ice, a staircase that led to the bright sun and cold moon appeared. 2 ancient voices could be heard. The path to heaven. 99,999 steps. Those with great perseverance, great willpower, and great talent can challenge the path to heaven. If you can reach the end of the path to heaven, you can choose one of the martial gods' secret treasures in the bright sun and cold moon to explore, the ancient voices rang out. In an instant, the world was in an uproar. Countless experts were cheering. As such, the successions of the two strongest martial gods were right in front of them. How could they not be excited? Ah! Even the heavens are on my side. Coincidentally, I've just broken through to the great saint stage. These two supreme martial gods from the ancient domain world set up a checkpoint on the path to heaven. I'm a cultivator with great willpower, great luck, great perseverance, and great talent. The martial gods' secret treasures are destined to be mine. The soul-refining demon emperor laughed arrogantly. Then, he suddenly stood up, and his terrifying great saint aura soared into the sky. For a moment, it was not much weaker than some of the 3 stars' great saints. He actually succeeded in breaking through to the great saint stage at this time? Hee. Fang Yu was still sneering. However, he noticed something. When the soul-refining demon emperor tried to break through to the great saint stage, he did not use the Tree of Time from the great Han imperial family's secret treasury. Obviously, the soul-refining demon emperor did not want to risk using the Tree of Time to break through to the great saint stage after Fang Yu had robbed him of 1,000,000 mysterious crystals. At this moment, Fang Yu had set his eyes on the Tree of Time. It could be said that the Tree of Time that could help him break through to the great saint stage was one of Fang Yu's goals in Soaring Cloud World. It seems like I have to change my strategy. Otherwise, with the Crimson Sun Divine Fire and Myriad Frost Divine Ice, even the Tree of Time will be turned into a pile of trash. Just as Fang Yu was thinking, at this moment in the vast secret realm, the figures of experts were constantly rising into the air and heading towards the 99,999 path to heaven. The soul-refining demon emperor was among them. Chapter 899. How stupid! 2 ultimate martial gods. If they don't want to, no one can reach the end. Of course, I'm the only exception. Fang Yu sneered as he looked at the cultivators who were running for their lives. Their faces were filled with excitement and madness, and he found it hilarious. The crowd found it hilarious that they did not even understand the plan of the 2 remnant consciousnesses of the martial god. 100,000 years had passed. Even though they were ultimate martial gods' remnant spirits, they had consumed a lot of energy. They had been awakened from their deep slumber by martial Emperor Qi Shao. This awakening might cause them to lose another 10,000 years of their lifespan. Therefore, the remaining thoughts of the 2 martial gods had set up the trap. They were waiting for the cultivators who were about to lose their minds to jump into the trap. Even though the cultivators in Lingyun realm did not have a high cultivation base, there was not even a peak great saint. However, there were too many of them. Lingyun realm was vast and boundless. Ku Xian, Black Saint, and the Black Turtle Celestial Palace's remnant clans were just a corner of Lingyun realm. There were hundreds of Saint Realm beasts who had barely developed intelligence and ran out. There were also other native creatures in Lingyun realm. After 100,000 years of evolution, there were many Saint Realm experts among them. They had set up a flight of stairs to the sky and promised the illusory and unbelievable martial god realm treasures. Many great saints would jump into it. When the time came, after absorbing the origin energy of hundreds and thousands of great saints and being awakened by martial Emperor Qi Shao, he would be able to recover all the energy he had consumed. He might even have some surplus. Don't interfere. Otherwise, don't blame me for driving you out of Lingyun realm. That martial emperor from the lower realm is your enemy. He wants to kill you. The 2 of us did not drive him back to where he came from. Instead, we drove him into the ancient domain. He's outside the square. If you're driven out of Lingyun realm, it'll be interesting if you bump into him. The 2 ultimate martial gods' remnant spirits seemed to have realized that Fang Yu had seen through their intentions. They immediately threatened Fang Yu fiercely. The remnant will was not the remnant soul of the martial god. Or rather, it would be more accurate to say that the thoughts left behind by the death of the strongest martial god realm experts would have a slight chance of becoming remnant thoughts. Clearly, the two lights in front of him were the same. Fang Yu's expression changed slightly. It had to be said. The threatening words of these two remnant consciousnesses were indeed very useful. If Fang Yu were to fight martial Emperor Qi Shao, he would not be a match for such a world suppression martial emperor, even if he was a lesser emperor from the lower realm. Very likely, in a single exchange, he would not even know how he had died. Threatening me? If I find the chance, I will definitely send these two remnant thoughts of yours on their way. How dare you threaten me? What I hate the most in my life is being threatened, Fang Yu thought to himself. He secretly recorded the names of the two remnant wills of the martial gods in his little booklet that held grudges. Of course, these were the words of the two remnant wills. It could also be a lie to Fang Yu. That martial Emperor Qi Shao was not in the ancient world at all, or rather, he was not in the Dahan Royal City Square. Unfortunately, Fang Yu could not afford to gamble. After all, if he encountered the Red Sun Divine Fire and lost the bet, he could still cut off his arm to save his life. If he lost the bet, then there would be nothing left. I almost forgot. I still have to take back the slaughter treasure chests from the elders of the 5 high sects. I can't let them die in the trap set up by the two remnant wills. Otherwise, won't I lose a lot of black iron treasure chests for no reason? You should know that even black iron treasure chests can give good things like the Sky Palace key. Fang Yu's expression changed slightly as he quickly looked around. In the end, his face darkened as he saw the figures of the elders of the 5 high sects frantically climbing the heaven staircase in different directions. At this moment, all the peak grand venerables and elders of the 5 high sects had gathered on the heaven staircase. Among the 10 elders, 8 of them had black iron treasure chests. 8 black iron treasure chests. Now, after letting them grow for so long, the pattern of the treasure chests has completely solidified. It can't transform anymore, and it won't lower its grade. It's about time for me to take back the treasure chests. Boom! Strong winds blew. Fang Yu walked forward like a fly. He directly crossed dozens of steps and descended beside the first elder of the 5 high sects. On the path to the heavens, what was tested was the perseverance, willpower, talent, and luck of each challenger. It could be said that every challenger would feel an invisible pressure on the steps, blocking their path forward. However, Fang Yu's side was different. One person, in the blink of an eye, crossed so many steps. It was as if he had cheated. How is this possible? Could it be that I saw wrongly? This young boy actually passed by in the blink of an eye as if he was walking on flat ground. He's crazy. He's only a peak grand venerate. How is he able to surpass the seniors and perform so well? Is he blessed? Below the path of heavens, many great venerables were envious and jealous of Qin Nan. What are you trying to do? This is the trial area established by the two supreme martial gods on the heaven staircase. How dare you act so presumptuously here? The surging pressure nearly drained this heavenly saber gate first elder of his strength. However, when he saw Fang Yu, a cultivator from the lower realm, walking towards him with a ferocious glint in his eyes, he immediately panicked. After all, they had initially planned to kill all 3 of the cultivators from the lower realm. I can't control the remnant thoughts of the two supreme martial gods, and they can't control me either. I'll kill you. They can obtain the origin aura too. They can't wait for me to do so, Fang Yu said with a hollow laugh. Following this, he slashed forward with ease. Bang! Blood splattered in all directions. Crimson blood splattered on the heaven staircase. Instantly, the cultivators who had been struggling to make their way up the heaven-span path suddenly felt a sense of relief wash over them. Some even managed to cross more than 10 steps with a single step. I understand now. The two supreme martial gods have given the weak cultivators a chance to survive. If they can kill someone else, the cultivator's origin aura will be able to offset the pressure on the step. Kill them. As long as they can kill enough people along the way, they will be able to reach the passage and enter the martial god realm. Someone yelled excitedly. At that instant, the madness in everyone's eyes burst forth. Even Yunfeng, the representative of Hall Ghost, who was in the great sacred realm, could not help but join the crowd. Chapter 900. Congratulations to the host for obtaining a black iron treasure chest. Do you want to open it now? The system's voice slowly sounded in his ears. Fang Yu couldn't care less. At this moment, on the path to heaven, all the challengers went crazy for the inheritance of the two supreme martial gods in the sky above their heads. They were obsessed with stepping on their corpses and bones as stepping stones. Using the blessings of others to offset the pressure, they would definitely be able to reach the end. At this moment the order collapsed. Countless figures fought crazily on the path to heaven. Every time they killed a person, there would be more than a dozen steps nearby, and then more than 100 steps. Of course, the pressure would be gone. The figures of the nearby powerhouses would move forward more than a dozen steps, or even more than 100 steps. Then, they would continue a new round of fighting. In this way, it made the challengers believe that this was the real way to pass the stage. Only this way could they have a chance to reach the end of the path to heaven. Not long after, on the path to heaven, there were already corpses everywhere, and blood flowed like a river. This scene of slaughter added a touch of demonic and evil blood to the white jade-like flight of stairs that led to the heavens. The person who started this was Fang Yu. Of course, more importantly, the remnant thoughts of the two powerful martial gods were adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. Using me? No. They are trying to get me killed. The remnant thoughts of the two supreme martial gods are definitely not entrenched in bright sun and cold moon. They are completely evil remnants. Fang Yu's expression changed, and the Sin throne rose up to protect him, blocking the greedy gazes of the cultivators and the murderous intent that came from them. After all, everyone had seen it. His performance on the heaven-span path was simply too stunning. It was as if he was walking on flat ground, extremely relaxed and comfortable. With such great blessings, in the eyes of the crowd, Fang Yu was probably the guy who ranked first among all the challengers present. And there were so many challengers of the great sage realm present. However, Fang Yu, the guy with the best blessings, was only a small great venerable. So, if he didn't kill Fang Yu, who would he kill? All the great saints stared at Fang Yu, and their eyes were filled with greed and killing intent. It was almost as if they were saying, "I'm going to borrow your worthless life," on their faces. He looks like the Crimson Firmament Martial Emperor isn't in ancient domain at all. Or perhaps, the two martial gods' evil intents are unable to expel anyone from Soaring Cloud World. Just now, when I forcefully sent Martial Emperor Qi Shao away, the two martial gods' evil thoughts were also greatly damaged. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to such lengths to plunder the life essence of cultivators. Fang Yu couldn't help but sneer. At this moment, he could even vaguely sense that two mocking gazes from the bright sun and the cold moon were fixed on him from above the firmament. Lingyun, heaven and earth, the remnants of the heavenly palace, and the three great tribes, all of them were surrounded by the evil aura. From the looks of it, the source of it all came from the remnant thoughts of the ancestors they worshipped. If this goes on, today I will definitely die. After all, my cultivation is still too weak. A peak great venerable might be able to command the northern region of Xianfeng domain. But in this place, I'm just a slightly stronger fish meat. On the heavenly path, Fang Yu didn't move at all. But in reality, on the system panel, Fang Yu had already opened the Slaughter Treasure Chest interface and clicked on the newly obtained Black Iron Treasure Chest. Congratulations, host, for opening the Black Iron Treasure Chest. You've obtained a talisman treasure that is immune to all damage for 15 minutes. The time it took to brew a cup of tea was calculated. That was about 60 breaths. Absolute immunity. This meant that even if all the great saints in the surroundings attacked Fang Yu during these 60 breaths of time, Fang Yu wouldn't be injured at all. Not bad. As expected of a treasure chest, this trump card came at the right time. Since you two supreme martial gods are trying to kill me with your evil intentions, I won't hesitate to kill you. Then don't blame me for turning this place upside down. Fang Yu's face was full of anger, and there was a cold light in his eyes. Then, he moved. His body turned into a stream of light, and he went straight on the heavenly path. At this moment, there was only one thing that Fang Yu needed to do. That was to kill the other 7 great sect elders of the other 7 great sects. Then, he would open all the treasure chests and turn them into his life-saving means. Look! This guy is flying. This guy can actually fly on the heavenly path. Damn it, what kind of terrifying blessing is this? It's as if he doesn't feel any pressure at all. The scene was in an uproar. Many jealous eyes were fixed on Fang Yu. After all, this scene was too unbelievable. Even a 7-star great saint was struggling to move forward on the heavenly path. However, Fang Yu, a weak great venerable, was able to suppress everyone present and fly through the air as if he was flying. What are you doing? Damn cultivator from the lower realm, you're being targeted. Didn't you realize? The martial god's secret treasure is right in front of you. You can go straight to the 90,000th step. Why are you here to find trouble with me? We didn't do anything to you in the Frosty Kingdom's capital. The Scarlet Snow Sect Great Elder's face was full of death aura. Facing Fang Yu, who was attacking him, he roared crazily and kept retreating. On the heavenly path, on one hand, he had to withstand the pressure from the steps, and on the other hand, he had to face Fang Yu's attack. Not to mention that he was only a peak great venerable like Fang Yu, even if he was a 1-star great saint. He couldn't withstand fighting with Fang Yu on the heavenly path. Boom! Blood splattered everywhere. The Scarlet Snow Sect Great Elder's headless body fell to the ground. Ding dong! Black Iron Treasure Chest received. Host, please check it. The system's notification rang in Fang Yu's ears. Fang Yu didn't pay any attention to him. His body was like lightning, and he rose slightly into the air. Once again, he attacked another elder of the northern region's upper sect. The peak great venerable elder was shocked and furious, and he was extremely terrified. You're crazy. Fang Yu! You're crazy. Sinful cultivator from the lower realm. You little bastard. We've only seen you a few times in the Frosty Kingdom's capital. Why are you killing us so crazily? Do you think killing us will help you escape from the danger of being targeted by the great saints? The Hanging Sword Mountain Elder cursed crazily. Then, without any hesitation, he turned around and fled. He even gave up the opportunity of the martial god's secret treasure on the heavenly path. No matter how tempting the martial god's secret treasure was, it wasn't as important as their own lives. Their lives were gone, but they would have nothing left. This Fang Yu in front of him was simply crazy, killing people indiscriminately. To Fang Yu, this shouldn't be beneficial at all. Chapter 901. Ding Dong. The 7th Black Iron Treasure Chest has been received. Host, please check. The system's voice sounded in Fang Yu's ears. At this moment, Fang Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. He had obtained 7 of the 8 treasure chests. There was only one left. This time, if he had the 8 treasure chests in his hands, Fang Yu would have the confidence to fight to the death even in the face of a saint expert. However, at this moment, Yun Feng's eyes flickered intensely as he watched Fang Yu's extremely unnatural killing spree. He seemed to have guessed something. Could it be that Fang Yu is walking on flat ground without feeling any pressure at all? Is he secretly helping the two remnant consciousnesses of the martial gods do something? That's why the two martial gods specially took care of Fang Yu just now. And Fang Yu is slaughtering these elders of the northern region's high sex. Yun Feng's breathing quickened. If he could talk to the two remnant consciousnesses of the martial gods, he was willing to pay any price. After all, in the martial god's secret treasure, the rewards he could obtain would probably be 10 times what he paid. 100 times. There are still 3 elders of the northern region's high sex left? Yun Feng's eyes shot out a cold light. Boom. In an instant, 2 elders of the high sex exploded. The last remaining elder of the northern region's high sex in the secret realm, the Grand Elder of Hanging Sword Mountain, was extremely terrified as he kept retreating. The aura of the Ghost God technique. You're Yun Feng, the 7th personal disciple of the Ghost Palace Master. But the 5 high sects have no dealings with the Ghost Palace Master, nor do we have any grudges. Yun Feng, why did you kill them? Why do you want to kill me? The Grand Elder of Hanging Sword Mountain questioned Yun Feng angrily as he fled outside quickly. And this Grand Elder of Hanging Sword Mountain was the last of the 8 black iron treasure chests here. If he died in Yun Feng's hands, Fang Yu would lose a treasure chest for nothing. Stop. Seeing this, Fang Yu was shocked and furious as he shouted. However, seeing this, Yun Feng felt that her guess was more and more correct. Immediately, Yun Feng smirked. Fang Yu, are you worthy of working for the two martial gods? Only I, Yun Feng, have the most honorable background here. Who do you think you are? With that, Yun Feng's palm fell, intending to kill the last Grand Elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain. However, at this moment, Fang Yu fiercely took out an item from his bosom. It was a jade talisman that looked like it was made of white jade. The words, Heavenly Palace, were inscribed on it. With Fang Yu's cultivation base, even if he rushed to Yun Feng's side, he was no match for a 5-star great saint like Yun Feng. Perhaps Yun Feng's backhand slap would end his life there too. However, the value of a black iron treasure chest was extremely high. It was almost equivalent to the second Heavenly Palace key. No one knew what kind of valuable treasures could be opened from a treasure chest. It was impossible for Fang Yu to abandon him. No matter what, he had to get the last black iron treasure chest. He had to be the one to kill the Grand Elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain. Bang! Holding the Heavenly Palace key in his hand, Fang Yu looked up at the sky above his head. The bright sun and the cold moon were roaring threateningly. Stop him! Save the Grand Elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain. Otherwise I'll crush this key. I'll make the Heavenly Palace lose the authority of the sect master. From then on, you'll sink into oblivion forever and won't be able to break free from the shackles of Lingyun heaven and earth. Fang Yu roared furiously. His voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. On the Tongtian road, everyone was shocked. Then they heard clearly that Fang Yu's threatening words were directed at the two martial gods' remnant consciousnesses in the sky above their heads. Instantly, everyone revealed a mocking smile. This guy is really crazy. He wants to threaten the two honorable martial gods' remnant consciousnesses with a tattered jade talisman that he got from an unknown place? He must be crazy. Ha ha ha. If I were the two supreme martial gods, I would definitely strike and send down a bolt of lightning to blast this guy into pieces. Countless mocking laughs rang out on the Tongtian road at this moment. On the Tongtian road, there was a cheerful atmosphere. In everyone's eyes, Fang Yu's actions were like a clown's. However, in the eyes of Ku Xian and the other two tribes, this was not the case. Ku Xian, Gui Xian, and Black Sage's expressions changed drastically, and their faces were filled with horror. Stop! Don't destroy the key! If you dare to destroy our hope of breaking free from the curse of Lingyun heaven and earth, after that, our 3 great clans will definitely grind your bones and scatter your ashes, exterminating both your body and soul. Ku Xian, Black Sage, and Gui Xian. The 3 7-star great saints roared furiously at the same time. At the same time, bang! The terrifying aura of the 7-star great saints swept across the area. They did not attack Feng Yu. Because of the suppression of the sect master of the Heavenly Palace, if they attacked Feng Yu, they would only embarrass themselves and expose the secret of the Heavenly Palace's key. At this moment, the 3 saints of Ku Xian, who stood at the top of the cultivation of Lingyun heaven and earth, attacked together. Their target was Yun Feng, a disciple of the Ghost Hall. The 3 7-star great saints attacked at once. Even Yun Feng gasped and his expression changed drastically. He had to give up on the Grand Elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain, who he could easily crush to death. At the same time, Yun Feng looked at Feng Yu in astonishment. This grand venerable kid, whom he had never taken seriously. What kind of secret do you have? Even though the 2 supreme martial gods of the Heavenly Palace have died, their remnant thoughts are still on your side. And the 3 tribes that are the remnants of the Heavenly Palace have always been fighting with each other. And now, they are helping you by teaming up against me. Yun Feng's eyes were cold as he stared at Feng Yu and said word by word. However, as he was speaking, Yun Feng shifted his gaze onto the Heavenly Palace's key. Apart from him, the rest of the great saints were also staring at the 2 words, Heavenly Palace, on the key with a blank expression. Soon, the place was in an uproar. An uproar broke out. The Heavenly Palace's key. I'm afraid this is the legendary Heavenly Palace's key. 100,000 years ago, the Heavenly Palace had an internal conflict. They were fighting for this Heavenly Palace's key, and the authority that the key represents. Legend has it that this Heavenly Palace's key was retrieved by an expert above the martial god realm 100,000 years ago. Why would it appear here? This is a treasure that caused the death of 2 supreme martial gods. An expert above the martial god realm from the heaven realm descended to the lower realm to retrieve it. Exclamations of astonishment could be heard. Following this, the eyes of countless people burned with greed and ferocious murderous intent. At this moment, Feng Yu had officially become everyone's target. Everyone at the scene, including the sacred realm beasts from the desolate mountain range, wanted to kill Feng Yu and claim the Heavenly Palace's key for themselves. Chapter 902. At this moment, the mystery had been solved. Why was Feng Yu able to walk on the path of heavens with ease when he was only a great highness from the lower realm? It turned out that he had the key to the Heavenly Palace. The key to the Heavenly Palace. It represented the supreme authority of the Heavenly Palace. Even the remnant thoughts of the 2 martial gods could not harm Feng Yu in the slightest. However, the survivors of the Heavenly Palace and the remnant spirits of the 2 martial gods could not harm Feng Yu. However, it did not mean Feng Yu was undefeatable in the Lingyun realm. The cultivators of the outside world, and the living beings of the Lingyun mystical ground, who were not closely related to the Heavenly Palace, were not restricted at all if they wanted to kill Feng Yu. Feng Yu! Hand over the key to the Heavenly Palace. It's not something you're qualified to wield. On the first 10,000 steps of the Path of Heavens, there were powerful figures or cultivators with the auras of the great sacred realm. There were also figures of savage beasts with ancient auras. They completely surrounded Feng Yu and the first elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain, leaving not the slightest gap. The terrifying pressure made it hard for people to breathe. Besides the 3 7-star great saints, Ku Xian, Black Saint, and Dark Turtle Saint, the strongest expert here was Yun Feng, who was a 5-star great saint from the Nether Pavilion. Feng Yu, I've misjudged you. You're hiding such a huge secret. Hee. The thing that forced you into the Lingyun realm at the royal capital of the Kingdom of Glaciers was the key to the Heavenly Palace, right? I didn't recognize it at the time. Yun Feng let out a sinister grin and walked toward Feng Yu. Meanwhile, the eyes of the Peak Martial Highness Realm First Elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain, who was also surrounded by the cultivators, flickered as he made up his mind. Friend Feng Yu, thank you for saving this old man's life. I'll have to thank you properly when I have the chance to escape from the Lingyun mystical ground. Now, this old man has a method that might be able to help the two of us escape. The first elder of Hanging Sword Mountain cupped his hands and bowed to Feng Yu. Then, he said mysteriously as he slowly walked towards Feng Yu. Could a mysterious method be used to help them escape? Feng Yu's interest was piqued. He casually summoned the system interface and immediately saw the treasure chest belonging to the first elder of Hanging Sword Mountain in the slaughter treasure chest page. The pitch-black malice boiled to the peak. Don't tell me the method you're talking about is my head, Feng Yu. Feng Yu's face was full of mockery. At this moment, the first elder of the Hanging Sword Mountain had already arrived in front of Feng Yu. A terrifying golden snake flew out from his sleeve. Clearly, this little golden snake was the Hanging Sword Mountain's first elder's trump card. Facing Yun Feng's attack just now, the Grand Elder of Hanging Sword Mountain didn't use it. At this moment, in order to kill Feng Yu, he used his strongest trump card right from the start. That's right. Let me borrow your head. The first elder of Hanging Sword Mountain snapped furiously. He was extremely confident. This little golden snake was the offspring of a peak sacred realm beast, the 9 arcane sacred king snake. It could instantly kill anyone below the great sacred realm. This Feng Yu was only a peak grand venerable. It would be a piece of cake to kill him with this method. Meanwhile, the mockery on Feng Yu's face intensified. Bang! At this instant, Feng Yu made his move. A crimson-red longsword flew into the air and slashed at the small golden snake. Then, it continued to slash at the Hanging Sword Mountain's first elder without slowing down at all. Why do you cultivators of the ancient region always treat me, Feng Yu, as an ordinary peak grand venerable? A crimson-red sword glow flickered. At that instant, an old corpse and the little golden snake's body that had been sliced in half fell to the ground. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 8th Black Iron treasure chest. At the same time, you have killed 8 martial highnesses of the 5 upper sects with extraordinary backgrounds. The host and the 5 upper sects of the Northern Territory have formed an irreconcilable grudge. The first map quest is now available. Travel across the Northern Territory and eliminate one of the 5 upper sects within a year. Reward: Super Treasure Chest. Punishment: deduct 3 cultivation realms. Ever since the system upgrade was completed, this was the first time a map quest had been issued on the system page, other than the Slaughter Treasure Chest. Feng Yu sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the bright red map mission information. The punishment for failure was a deduction of 3 cultivation realms. That's 3 cultivation realms. In other words, if Feng Yu did not eliminate one of the 5 upper sects with a martial monarch realm expert within a year, his cultivation would drop from the peak grand venerable realm to the peak martial emperor realm. He would be ranked at the bottom of the ancient region's 3 upper realms to the bottom of the 3 upper realms. This was something Feng Yu could not accept. Meanwhile, following the Slaughter Treasure Chest and the map quest, Feng Yu also knew about it. It was impossible to obtain a transcendent grade treasure chest from an enemy he had killed. The highest grade treasure chest that could be obtained from killing enemies was a gold treasure chest. A super treasure chest. It could only be obtained from map quest. The 5 upper sects all have martial monarchs. However, it shouldn't be too difficult to choose one and eliminate it within a year. After all, the weakest martial monarch of the 5 upper sects, Hanging Sword Mountain, has not appeared for nearly 100 years. Just as Fang Yu was thinking. Boom! A terrifying sound broke through the air. A long saber stretched across the sky like a blood-red waterfall and instantly slashed Fang Yu's body. The owner of the long saber was a savage beast that was about to transform into a human form. At this moment, the savage beast of the Sage Realm waved the long saber in his hand and looked at the distracted Fang Yu. He was full of anger and scolded fiercely. "Bastard! You're just an ant! How dare you be distracted in front of us martial monarchs? You're crazy! Today I, the Tiger King, will teach you a lesson about the law of the jungle." The saber shocked the world. At this moment, Fang Yu's reaction was extremely swift. He raised the crimson flame sword in his hand and immediately used it to block before him, and he forcefully blocked this terrifying strike of a great Saint Realm expert. Boom! The ground under Fang Yu's feet exploded and his entire body was sent flying by the terrifying power of the great saint. At this moment, Fang Yu looked at the great saints who were looking at him with cold faces and greed in their eyes. A mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Now, the roles of offense and defense have changed. The ones who should be the prey and need to escape are you. I, Fang Yu, am going to turn the tables and hold my head high," Fang Yu said with a cold smile. Boom! At this moment, all 7 black iron treasure chests were opened on the system interface. The first black iron treasure chest had allowed Fang Yu to be completely immune to damage for 60 breaths of time. The remaining 7 black iron treasure chests were all opened. No matter how unlucky Fang Yu was, he could still get something good. Of course, if there were 8 black iron treasure chests, only the first one would be useful. The rest would be useless. Fang Yu did not hesitate and turned to run. Chapter 903. Ding Dong. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the 7-star Great Saint Realm experience. The ultimate martial god has descended to the world in 5 breaths. 1 scapegoat doll. 5 times your luck for 2 hours. Fake martial god mask Bright Sun, broken. Fake martial god mask Cold Moon, broken. 1 random teleportation scroll. Note: random teleportation distance is more than 5 million miles. Do not use it unless your life is in danger. In the blink of an eye. The 7 great treasure chests that could be said to be a luxurious lineup were all opened. In Fang Yu's system space, a total of 4 special cards were opened from the 8 black iron treasure chests. A strange doll, and an ancient scroll, 2 broken masks. However, when the 2 broken masks appeared in the system space was completely empty. In the sky, the 2 high and mighty wills that looked down on everything in the world were suddenly terrified and even looked at Fang Yu with some disbelief. How is this possible? Weren't those 2 guys destroyed in body and soul long ago and replaced by us? Boom! In the sky, bolts of lightning appeared and enveloped the entire path to heaven. Kill Fang Yu! Kill Fang Yu! I don't care who killed Fang Yu. Hand over the heavenly palace key. Hand over the 2 masks in his hands. There is no need to complete the path to heaven. Heavenly Martial God. Black Heaven Martial God. Choose one of the 2 inheritances. That person can even become the master of the Heavenly Palace and control the 3 major tribes of the Heavenly Palace remnant people, as well as all the treasures left behind by the ancestors of the Heavenly Palace in the martial god battlefield. An ancient voice slowly appeared. The voice was hurried and full of anxiety and fear. Boom! What? Master of the Heavenly Palace? Heavenly Martial God. Black Heaven Martial God. Choose one of the 2 inheritances. He can also become the master of the Heavenly Palace and command the 3 tribes. In an instant, the place that was originally boiling to the extreme. Suddenly, the atmosphere reached a fever pitch. Fang Yu's head is mine. A savage beast who had become a martial saint wielded a giant axe and was covered in rhinoceros leather armor. His eyes shone with incomparable ferocity. There was not only one person. Another great saint had made his move. He was a martial saint of the three major tribes of the Heavenly Palace remnant people. Master of the Heavenly Palace. How can a savage wasteland demon beast like you be the master of the Heavenly Palace who commands our three clans? Lord Black Saint of the Heavenly Palace remnant people of the Heavenly Palace. The Heavenly Palace Marshal Saint Heavenly Battle Heavenly Eyes Heavenly Palace, Heavens. Heaven's Marshal Heavenly Soul on the path of ascension, the soul-refining Devil Emperor, who had been hiding in the dark, frowned. His eyes slowly filled with wariness. Heavens, Marshal Heavenly Divine Heavenly, this bone jade, had coincidentally entered the secret vault of the great Han royal family. The soul-refining Devil Emperor was well aware of the effects of this technique. When there was a special opportunity, it guided the direction of the martial god battlefield. However, to the soul-refining Devil Emperor's disbelief, the bone jade wasn't pointing at the bright sun above his head. Instead, it was pointing at the cold moon. Instead, it was the land of the remnant tribes of Ku Xian and the other heavenly palaces. How is this possible? Empyrean Martial God Xian Tian. The inheritance that they left behind after they died is in the sky. However, why is the martial god battlefield in that direction? The soul-refining demon emperor was in disbelief. Could it be that 100,000 years ago, the celestial martial god and the black heaven martial god, these two supreme martial gods, did not perish together after fighting each other? But how was that possible? Besides the supreme martial gods of the same realm, was there anyone else in the mortal dimension 100,000 years ago capable of instantly killing two martial gods? I have a feeling that this matter is related to a great secret from 100,000 years ago. If this matter is settled, I'll be the one who will benefit the most from the martial god's opportunity in the Lingyun secret zone. The soul-refining Devil Emperor took a deep look at Fang Yu, who was being beaten up by many great saints, and sneered. He turned around and headed in the direction the bone jade was pointing at. In fact, there was no use for him to stay here. If the soul-refining Devil Emperor wanted to fight for the two martial gods' inheritances in the sky above him, he would have to fight against these great saints. Even though the soul-refining demon emperor had a martial emperor realm primary soul, it would be difficult for him to emerge victorious. Even if he could win, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. It was not worth it. Since that was the case, he might as well explore the real martial god battlefield. Who knew, he might be able to obtain a greater opportunity. A chaotic battle had finally broken out on the path to heaven. However, at this moment, the evil spirit from the bright sun in the sky could no longer tolerate it. It roared in all directions like a thunderclap. What are you doing? I've asked you to kill this kid and hand over the key and the mask. Hurry up and kill this guy. The ancient voice roared in the sky and shook the mountains and rivers. It was obvious that it was infuriated and could no longer tolerate it. If Fang Yu did not have the key to the heavenly palace, they would not have been able to harm Fang Yu due to the suppression of the authority of the heavenly palace. Most likely, when the auras of the two masks appeared, the monstrous crimson sun divine fire and the endless myriad frigid divine ice would have already burned Fang Yu into ashes and frozen him into powder. Yes. Senior, we'll do it now. The great saints trembled in fear. They kept nodding and bowing. At the same time, they glanced at the crimson sun divine flame and the godly ice that were closing in on them. Bang! All the saints present radiated terrifying divine might as they walked towards Fang Yu from every direction. At this moment, Fang Yu took out the two broken martial god masks. He looked at the bright sun and the cold moon engraved on them and received the feedback from the system. Broken martial god mask, bright sun. Usage: put the mask on the face of the heaven martial gods, immortal remains. It can expel the evil spirits from the outworld and awaken the martial god. Broken martial god mask, cold moon. Usage: put the mask on the face of the black heaven martial gods, immortal remains. It can expel the evil spirits from the outworld and awaken the martial god. Evil spirits from the outworld? Fang Yu raised his head and looked at the giant bright sun and the cold moon in the sky. He seemed to have realized something. 100,000 years ago, the heavenly palace had disappeared due to the internal strife. It seemed like there was another secret in the martial god battlefield. The heaven martial god. The black heaven martial god. They were not dead at all. The two ultimate martial gods had been living in the martial god battlefield. They were trapped by the evil spirits from the outworld in their bodies. Their true souls were roaming the world and could not be awakened. The guy in the sky that looked like the obsessions of the two ultimate martial gods was a fake. Chapter 904. You're playing tricks. I almost fell into your trap as well. I really thought you were the evil thoughts left behind by the two martial gods who had fallen. Fang Yu cursed fiercely. He felt that he had been deceived. Then, facing the martial saints who had been bewitched by the two evil souls, two transparent karpas appeared in Fang Yu's hands. 7-star great saints, 10 breaths. Completely immune to damage, 60 breaths. The two martial gods had not fallen at all. How could they have left the secret treasures of the martial gods? These two evil souls from the Outerium were simply deceiving him, and their promises were empty words that couldn't be fulfilled at all. In fact, Fang Yu was still doubtful. The crimson sun divine fire and myriad chill divine ice that filled the sky were probably fake too. After all, only the two supreme martial gods who had awakened would be able to easily utilize such an attack that only martial gods were capable of using. Fang Yu, die! Yun Feng roared. In order to perform well in front of the two martial gods' remnant thoughts, he took the lead and rushed to the front. As a member of the Ghost Palace, Yun Feng had many tricks up his sleeves and was good at killing curses. Yun Feng was confident enough. The moment he got close to Fang Yu, he would curse and tear the weak Peak Grand Venerable into pieces. What he should consider now was how to quickly seize Fang Yu's head. Ha! Which one of those who are qualified to stand up until now isn't a great saint? Only Fang Yu, with the Sky Palace key in his hand, could hold on until now with the cultivation of a great venerable. What a pity! It's the end. The cultivation of a great venerable is so weak. Someone sneered, his face full of mockery. However, the next moment, the mocking expression on his face stiffened. The black robe on Fang Yu, who was surrounded by the crowd, fluttered without wind. Then a terrifying aura soared into the sky. 7-star great saint. Moreover, he was a peak 7-star great saint. At this moment, Fang Yu's cultivation had already reached the upper limit of what Lingyun heaven and earth could bear. If he were to increase his cultivation by another minor level, he would be rejected by this world. How is this possible? 7-star great saint. Isn't Fang Yu a cultivator from the lower realm, an ant-like revered martial artist? How did he suddenly become so strong? Some great saints cried out in fear. However, no one could give them an answer. There were only 3 7-star great saints in Lingyun heaven and earth. They were the 3 great celestial palaces, Ku Xian, Gui Xian, and Black Saint. As for the rest of the Lingyun heaven and earth creatures, the strongest was only a 3-star great saint. They were not even as strong as Yun Feng, a foreign cultivator. What are you afraid of? Even if he's a 7-star pinnacle great saint, He won't be able to withstand the attacks of over 100 great saints. He's about to be blasted into smithereens. Another great saint shouted as he raised his arm. Immediately, all the great saints also came to their senses, and the mocking looks on their faces became even more pronounced. This was especially so for Yunfeng. Fortunately, this curse technique in my hand was bestowed to me by my master, who is the Netherhall's master. Even if a peak great saint is here, he will also be reduced to ashes after being hit by this technique. Yunfeng had a mocking look on his face as he waited to see Feng Yu being torn apart by the curse technique and then blasted into smithereens. However, the murderous aura of the sky bombarded Feng Yu's body. Endless dust flew everywhere. The ground where Feng Yu was at caved in by the bombardment. However, Feng Yu was still unscathed. Even the black robe and cloak on his body were spotless, and there were no injuries at all. He was standing alone. He stood in the middle of the battlefield and did not make a move at all. He used his physical strength to withstand the attacks of over 100 great saints. There were no injuries on his body at all. His cloak was also not damaged. His countless gasps of astonishment could be heard. Even Yunfeng had a dazed expression at this moment. Could this be the legendary martial emperor body refinement warrior from the lower realm? How is that possible? How can his physical body be at the martial emperor level from the lower realm? If he really has this, why would he be in such a sorry state when he was chased by me earlier? Yunfeng's face was filled with disbelief. At this very moment, the 100 great saints present had the same expression as him. Everyone, are you done fighting? Since that's the case, it's time for me to make a move in return. Haha. This is only fair, isn't it? Feng Yu smiled indifferently, but the mocking look in his eyes was getting heavier. He was calculating the time in his heart. Buzz. The sword chime resounded throughout this place. The red fire divine sword appeared again. With the cultivation of a 7-star great saint, the divine radiance released by this sword was 100 times stronger than before. Red fire divine sword, drink the blood today to your heart's content. With that, Feng Yu slashed with his sword. This move was ordinary and nothing special. Compared to the aura of a 7-star great saint that was released from Feng Yu's body, this move seemed to be a joke. 1 breath passed. 2 breaths passed. Very soon, the saints, who had been on high alert, their eyes filled with fear, suddenly burst into laughter. Their expressions regained much of their composure. After all this time, you're just bluffing. You've only cultivated some kind of terrifying defensive secret skill that blocked our crazy attacks just now. Now, when it's time to kill the enemy, you'll be exposed completely. Even if a 7-star great saint who was only good at defense and not offense had the physical body of a martial emperor from the lower realm, so what? There was nothing to be afraid of at all. Boom. However, at this moment, heaven and earth roared, and the sounds of explosions were endless. Even the violent bright sun and the cold moon in the sky emitted an extremely terrifying screech. This move is actually tainted with some divinity. What's the name of this sword? Your sword Dao attainment is almost at the threshold of the martial god realm? No. This is a divine sword. This is a divine sword. Moreover, the aura is so familiar. Is this the divine sword of the Crimson Flame War God who died in the divine realm 1,000,000 years ago? Why is it in your hands? The 2 extraterritorial evil souls were finally terrified. It was also at this moment, under the witness of all the saints, the incomparably dazzling sword light illuminated the entire world, almost cutting the entire sky with the bright sun and the cold moon as the boundary line. However, the great saints who were in the area of the sword light did not even have time to cry out in despair. They were turned into ashes on the ground. This move was too powerful. It was terrifyingly powerful. A sword that cut through the sky. Even if a terrifying martial emperor who specialized in sword Dao was here, he would not be able to display the brilliance of Fang Yu's extremely stunning sword move. Wait, a divine sword. Is he really a cultivator from the lower realm? Why is there only a handful of divine swords in the ancient world? Even the martial god overlords might not have a divine sword. How could a cultivator from the lower realm have? Chapter 905. At this very moment, countless terrified gazes were fixed on Fang Yu on the Tongtian path. Even though these people were powerful as great saints, their faces were still filled with fear as they looked at Fang Yu like ants looking up at a giant. There was no other reason. At this moment, the strength that Fang Yu had displayed was simply too strong. This sword slashed the sky. Just a little bit of the sword light's residual power was enough to kill 29 great saints. What kind of terrifying strength is this? The crimson fire divine sword is in his hand. Coupled with the cultivation of a 7-star great saint, this kid from the lower realm can be said to be the strongest cultivator in the Lingyun world. Also, the two martial gods seem to have mentioned the realm of the gods. Could it be the legendary realm of the gods? This kid is related to the realm of the god. How is it possible? Someone cried out in alarm, and even more people ran away in fear. The inheritance left behind by the two strongest martial gods was indeed extremely tempting. This was a promise to kill Fang Yu, and no one could refuse it. However, they had to be alive to enjoy it. One had to know. At this moment, this kid from the lower realm was no longer the ant-like cultivator from before. If they forced their way in, the remaining 80 great saints and all the great saints of the soaring cloud realm would perish here. Who else wants to be my enemy? You? Or you? Fang Yu moved the long sword in his hand and pointed it at the red-horned Tiger King who was the leader of the Sage Realm beasts. This red-horned Tiger King was 10,000 feet tall, and its demonic aura was extremely condensed. Every move it made had the terrifying aura of a saint. It was almost equivalent to a 7-star great saint of the human race. At this moment, the red-horned Tiger King, the leader of the Sage Realm beasts, saw Fang Yu pointing the long sword in his hand at him. He was so scared that his scalp went numb and he kept retreating. I dare not. I dare not. Lord Saint Fang, you're so terrifying. How dare I be your enemy? I'm convinced. I'm convinced. All the Lingyun Sage Realm beasts are convinced. We are willing to swear an oath to serve you for the rest of our lives. The red-horned Tiger King immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Fang Yu, begging him to let them go. It was obvious that it was scared out of its wits by Fang Yu's terrifying sword strike. At this moment, it didn't have the slightest majesty of a great saint. If it weren't for the fact that there were so many people here, it would have done something even more shameless in order to survive. Since that's the case, go ahead. 57 sage-level ominous beasts have all sworn an oath to serve me forever. Otherwise, all of you will die. Fang Yu sneered. So, he had set his sights on these 57 sage-level ominous beasts. At this moment, Fang Yu's 7-star Great Saint cultivation base could only last for 10 breaths of time. Since these saint-stage ferocious beasts had taken the initiative to pledge their loyalty, Fang Yu was naturally willing to go with the flow. What? Fang Yu is crazy. He wants all of these 57 sage-level ominous beasts to pledge their loyalty to him. He is already strong enough. With the help of 57 sage-level ominous beasts, no one in the soaring cloud world can stop him. Yun Feng's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in shock. All right. We will pledge our loyalty to Lord Saint. The red-horned Tiger King, who was the leader, gritted his teeth and agreed. Soon, under the leadership of this 7-star Great Saint of the demonic clan, all of the Saint Realm ferocious beasts present swore oaths to pledge allegiance to Fang Yu. However, it was a pity. Fang Yu could only use such powerful fighters in the soaring cloud world. He couldn't bring them out of the soaring cloud world at all. Any living creature that grew up in the soaring cloud world would be cursed as long as they stayed there for more than 3 years. They would never be able to leave the soaring cloud world again. On the path to heaven, Fang Yu alone was ferocious. Behind him, there were 57 sage-level ominous beasts that were thousands of feet tall. Suddenly, all the great saints felt a sense of suffocation. Such a lineup could sweep through the soaring cloud world. Fang Yu stood alone, and his ferocious aura shocked the entire place. No one could compare to him. It could be said that, at this time, whoever Fang Yu wanted to die must die. Because under the sky, Fang Yu was the strongest. Fang Yu had the final say. "Thank you, Saint Fang, for sparing my life." A loud cry sounded. Then, there was a series of kowtowing sounds from Luo Zhe. Everyone looked over and immediately saw the red-horned Tiger King leading 57 terrifying great demon saints with a fawning look on his face. They were kowtowing to Fang Yu. This scene gave him an indescribable sense of strangeness. On the path to heaven, the division of factions and camps gradually became clear. Fang Yu and the 57 sage-level ominous beasts were the most powerful camp. Behind them were the 3 major tribes of the remnants of the heavenly palace. Finally, there were the great saints of the human race who were vaguely led by His Highness Ghost Yunfeng, who were trapped in the soaring cloud world and unable to leave. "Humph! You're just a brat. How dare you show off? Who do you think wants to kill you?" The ones who want to kill you are 2 of the 3 most powerful martial gods who once ruled the 9 regions. You're just relying on the power of the divine sword in your hand. If I, Yunfeng, had a divine sword like yours, I would definitely be able to kill you with my sword. Yunfeng's white robe fluttered even though there was no wind. His face was full of cold mockery. His words were full of hints. Then, as expected, Yunfeng's eyes were filled with madness. After saying that, he suddenly clenched his teeth and directly cupped his fists toward the dim sun and the cold moon in the sky. He said respectfully, Seniors martial gods, you've seen it too. Fang Yu is just a cultivator from the lower world, but he's so arrogant that he's above us ancient region cultivators. Seniors martial gods, please lend me a divine weapon from the secret treasure of the martial gods. After I, Yunfeng, kill this guy, I'll definitely return the godly sword and everything that you want will be presented to you. Yunfeng nodded and looked at Yunfeng. Yunfeng's shocking action attracted the attention of all the great saints present. Immediately, many of them gasped. How dare Yunfeng offend Fang Yu? Did Yunfeng forget about the sword that broke the sky? If Fang Yu wanted to kill him, it was really no different from killing an ant. However, not long after, they realized it again. This was actually a crazy gamble by Yunfeng. In order to get a divine weapon, he didn't hesitate to bet his life. And the backing that Yunfeng relied on was the true dominator of the soaring cloud world above his head, the remnant thoughts of the 2 most powerful martial gods. Fang Yu was so arrogant. The sword just now broke the sky and pointed directly at the bright sun and the cold moon formed by the secret treasures of the 2 most powerful martial gods. How disrespectful! It was most likely that the 2 martial gods' remnant thoughts were infuriated to the extreme, and could not wait to tear Fang Yu into pieces. As long as he borrowed the divine weapon, he could kill Fang Yu. Even if he returned the weapon he borrowed in the end, wouldn't the crimson fire divine sword in Fang Yu's hand, which was obviously of an extraordinary grade, become Yunfeng's? Chapter 906. To Yunfeng, such a risk would bring him great benefits. After all, it was a godly sword. A godly sword that even the overlord martial gods' forces rarely had. Such a wild gamble. We know that we have a high chance of winning, but we still don't dare to. but Yun Feng from the Ghost Palace dares to. Not only does he dare to, but he also dares to do it. If Yun Feng doesn't die, he will definitely become a hero in the future. All the great saints exclaimed in their hearts. Then, more great saints looked up at the sky, at Hao Yang Hanyue, and sentenced Fang Yu to death in their hearts. A 7-star great saint. Plus, he had the red fire godly sword. So what? One thing had to be clear. The real masters of Lingyun heaven and earth were not cultivators after all. They were the two ultimate martial gods. Even if they were just remnant thoughts, they were still two ultimate martial gods when they were alive. Both of them had the ultimate martial god's secret treasures that contained countless treasures. Even if one or two treasures were leaked from the ultimate martial god's secret treasures, it would be enough to break the absolute advantage that Fang Yu had. On one side was the cultivator from the lower world, Fang Yu, who had angered the ultimate martial gods. On the other side was the ancient region cultivator, Yun Feng, who was extremely devout and respectful. Even an idiot knew what the two ultimate martial gods' remnant thoughts would choose. However, after Yun Feng finished speaking, a while had passed. The scene was silent. In the sky, the two ultimate martial gods' remnant thoughts didn't react at all. The sky was quiet, and there was no movement in this world. How is this possible? The two ultimate martial gods didn't care about me, but stood on the side of the sinner from the lower world who angered them. This is impossible. What the hell is going on? Yun Feng was greatly shocked, and his face was filled with madness. At this moment, his heart was filled with hatred as he stared at Hao Yang Hanyue. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't break through the red sun godly fire and the myriad chill godly ice, he would have rushed into the ultimate martial god's secret treasures and asked for the truth. Haha. This is so funny. You actually asked for a godly weapon from them. They are not the remnant thoughts of the ultimate martial gods at all. Furthermore, the Lingyun heaven and earth doesn't have the inheritance of the two supreme martial gods. How can those two extraterrestrial evil souls give you a divine weapon? Because they don't even have half a divine weapon in their hands. Fang Yu's face was full of ridicule. In this place, he was probably the only one who knew the truth. The two strongest martial gods, the Heaven Highness martial god and the Xiantian martial god, were still alive. The bright sun-cold moon above his head was not some martial god's secret treasure. Even in the Lingyun heavens and earth, there was no martial god's secret treasure. After all, the two martial gods were only unconscious. The greatest fortunate encounter in the Lingyun heavens and earth was the martial god battlefield, which contained the corpses of many martial monarchs and their treasures. Perhaps even the two supreme martial gods, who had been slumbering for 100,000 years, were in the battlefield of the martial gods. Do you really want to kill me that badly? If so, Yun Feng, there's no need for me to keep you alive. You wanted to kill me from the very beginning, just because I'm a cultivator from the lower realms? Now, he still had the cultivation of a 7-star great saint. Fang Yu was still an invincible figure who dominated the entire place. Boom. Fang Yu said slowly, but his footsteps were not slow. He walked towards Yun Feng step by step, with an unparalleled sense of oppression and the aura of death. At the same time, Fang Yu even opened the system panel and stared straight at Yun Feng in front of him. He stared at the dark malice surrounding him that was extremely deep towards him. According to this level, a treasure chest should have appeared on Yun Feng's body long ago. Is there a limit to the number of slaughter treasure chests? Recently, 8 black iron treasure chests and 3 silver treasure chests have appeared, and that's the limit of the treasure chest system? Fang Yu pondered and frowned. However, at this very moment, Fang Yu could not wait to see if a treasure chest would appear on Yun Feng's body. Because if this continued, it would be over in 10 breaths' time. Without the cultivation of a 7-star great saint, It would be almost impossible for Fang Yu to kill Yunfeng, who was a 5-star great saint. Die. Unexpectedly, before Fang Yu made a move, Yunfeng roared and attacked Fang Yu first. Yunfeng, who was in a white robe, had a pearl shining with golden light in his hand, and he crushed it. In an instant, heaven and earth trembled. A terrifying energy fluctuation gathered at this moment. This was energy fluctuation that surpassed the 7-star Great Saint realm, and even the peak Great Saint realm. Oh my God! How is this possible? Such a powerful aura. This is the energy fluctuation aura that belongs to an Emperor realm powerhouse above the Great Saint realm. His Highness Ghost Yunfeng is so favored. In order to protect him, Highness Ghost actually gave Yunfeng this extremely difficult to refine Origin Soul Pearl that seals the power of an attack from Highness Ghost. Origin Soul Pearls were extremely rare. It could seal the power of an Emperor realm powerhouse. In the 9 regions of the human realm, only the 12 martial god overlords had a few Origin Soul Pearls. Unexpectedly, they were lucky enough to see one today. This Origin Soul Pearl sealed the power of an attack from Highness Ghost Overlord. And Highness Ghost Overlord had the cultivation of a 3-star Great Saint realm. A 3-star Great Saint realm powerhouse attacked. Heaven and earth in Lingyun twisted, as if trying to suppress the energy fluctuation that surpassed the peak Great Saint realm. However, it was all in vain. The power of a 3-star Great Saint realm powerhouse. It was enough to crush the rules of Lingyun. Boom! In an instant, the sky changed color, and the wind was like a dragon that swept across heaven and earth. At this moment, in the dazzling light of the Origin Soul Pearl, a huge golden palm formed in an instant and crushed towards Fang Yu's body. Fang Yu is finished. I really didn't expect Yunfeng to be so favored by Highness Ghost Overlord. A 3-star Great Saint realm powerhouse can easily kill a peak Great Saint. Even if Fang Yu has a Crimson Fire Divine weapon, it's useless. His cultivation is still too low, and his battle strength is only at the edge of a peak Great Saint realm. Looking at the descending golden palm, all the Great Saints present, including the Great Saint realm ferocious beasts, who were loyal to Fang Yu forever, gave Fang Yu a death sentence in their hearts. Everyone below the Emperor realm was an ant. In the 9 regions of the human realm, no one could escape from this rule. Apart from the 3 strongest martial gods who had succeeded in resisting an Emperor realm powerhouse when their cultivation was below the Emperor realm. Other than that, in the 9 regions of the human realm, there was not a single peak Great Saint who could escape from an attack from an Emperor realm powerhouse. However, it was clear that today, there was going to be a 4th person who succeeded in resisting an Emperor realm powerhouse's power even though their cultivation was below the Emperor realm. That was Fang Yu. Chapter 907. Good! Yunfeng, do you think you can kill me like this? If that's the case, you're looking down on me too much. Today, I'll show you that I, Fang Yu, can't be killed. Fang Yu laughed wantonly. After all, he had revealed his 7-star Great Saint cultivation level and easily defeated everyone with the red flame divine sword in his hand. This made Fang Yu feel that it was a waste to use this special card that gave him complete immunity for 60 breaths of time. However, at this moment, Fang Yu was glad that he had used this special card that gave him complete immunity. Otherwise, he might not have had the chance to use this card to save his life under the pressure of the brilliant golden palm. These 2 cards were very worth it. Bang! Then, under the incredulous gazes of the great saints, they saw Fang Yu plunging the red flame divine sword into the ground and then charging straight at the brilliant golden palm. He's crazy. Is there something wrong with Fang Yu's head? Isn't it good to live a little longer? He took the initiative to charge at Palace Master Ghost to seek death. Does he want his soul to scatter and his body to be destroyed? Below the Emperor realm, the so-called saints are all ants. This is the case for peak great saint. Fang Yu, a mere 7-star great saint, is even more so. Countless people sucked in a breath of cold air. They felt that the current Fang Yu was like a madman, without the slightest bit of rationality. Now that he could still walk and was not suppressed by the Emperor's aura, he should think of ways to escape from the path to heaven as soon as possible. He should think of ways to escape from Lingyun realm. However, Fang Yu had lost his mind and ran to his death. This was simply the act of a lunatic. However, at the next moment, all the great saints widened their eyes in disbelief. Because of this, they sucked in a breath of cold air again. Bang! Under the brilliant golden palm, with Fang Yu as the center, the heaven and earth within 100,000 miles of this territory were shaking and twisting non-stop. Countless trees and forests were devoid of vitality and turned into scorched earth. Even the sky was devoid of any clouds. It had turned into a dark and distorted gray. At the center of the battlefield, there was a figure who was completely unscathed. Only the robe on her body had been blasted apart, revealing her snow-white skin. Fang Yu. Just now, Fang Yu, who had taken the initiative to meet the great Emperor's attack, was actually unscathed and had calmly survived. Impossible! This is my teacher, the 3-star Great Emperor Realm Palace Master Ghost, who made this origin spirit pearl himself. His most powerful attack is sealed inside. Not to mention you, even a martial emperor from the lower realm would be seriously injured and forced to flee if he were to face a blow from this spirit pearl. How can you still be alive? Looking at Fang Yu, who wasn't injured at all, Yun Feng was so terrified that her eyes almost popped out. This trip to the north of the Xianfeng domain. He, Yun Feng, had accepted a sect mission from Palace Master Ghost, which was to investigate the whereabouts of the cultivators who had snuck into the lower realm. The cultivators from the lower realm, who had the qualifications to sneak into the ancient domain, were most likely martial emperors from the lower realm. Therefore, his master, the Netherhall's master, a peak 3-star great emperor, had bestowed such a precious origin soul pearl to him. Before he left, Palace Master Ghost had deliberately warned him. The power sealed in this Cloud Soul Pearl was enough to blast a 1-star Martial Emperor Realm expert into pieces or severely injure a 2-star Martial Emperor Realm expert. He had told him to use it properly. If he really encountered a Martial Emperor from the lower realm, he could use it to kill the enemy or save his life. This was also why he had dared to take the risk of borrowing the divine weapon from the 2 martial gods' remnant consciousnesses to kill Fang Yu when he was facing a 7-star great saint who had the Scarlet Flame divine sword. In Yun Feng's opinion at that time, no matter how strong Fang Yu was, as long as the origin spirit pearl was used, Fang Yu would definitely be killed. At that time, he would not even need to use the divine weapon to obtain the Scarlet Flame divine sword. The reason why he had purposely borrowed the divine weapon from the 2 martial gods' remnant consciousnesses was that he, Yun Feng, wanted to get on their good side. Only when he was officially recognized by the 2 martial gods would he be valued and have a bright future. Only then would he be able to obtain countless opportunities in the martial gods' secret treasure. However, reality had given him a hard slap in the face. The Cloud Spirit Pearl that his teacher, Palace Master Ghost, had given him was like a fake. It was completely useless. Fang Yu was still alive and kicking. "You, how did you do it? That's a origin spirit pearl." Even Martial Emperor Qi Shao, who was expelled from the Martial Emperor realm, would be severely injured and defeated by the Martial Emperor's attack in the origin spirit pearl. Moreover, you, Fang Yu, are only a 7-star great saint. Looking at Fang Yu, who was walking towards him with the Scarlet Flame divine sword in his hand, Yun Feng's face was filled with unwillingness as he asked aloud. Yun Feng knew that he would definitely die. However, at the last moment, he wanted to know the answer. Otherwise, he would not be able to rest in peace. I'm not telling you. Fang Yu's lips curled into a cold smile. Regarding the slaughter treasure chest and the existence of the system, these were his greatest secrets. How could he tell anyone else? You. Fang Yu. You damn cultivator from the lower realm. If I meet you again in the future, I'll definitely make you beg for death. Yun Feng's face was filled with anger. Boom. At this moment, a violent fluctuation appeared on his body. An ancient talisman with ancient spiritual inscriptions on it instantly burst out. Boundary-breaking talisman. This was yet another extremely precious life-saving method of one party. No matter which mystic realm he was in, as long as he used this boundary-breaking talisman, he would be able to return to the ancient region in an instant. It turned out that Yun Feng had such a life-saving means. Everything that happened before was mostly an act. Yun Feng wanted to find out why Fang Yu was so powerful. Leave? Did I say you could leave? Fang Yu sneered. Buzz. The sound of a sword rang out. At the same time, the extremely dazzling red fire burned fiercely and rose up. As the red fire sword was raised, it slashed towards Yun Feng, who was covered in the boundary-breaking talisman. The boundary-breaking talisman has been activated. Even if you have the divine sword in your hand, Fang Yu, you won't be able to hurt me, Fang Yu. We'll meet again someday. Fang Yu, I'll definitely kill you next time. Yun Fan said hatefully with a ferocious smile on his face. At this moment, he looked at Fang Yu with a mocking expression. The boundary-breaking talisman was a rare treasure. 1,000,000 years ago, it was rumored that the realm of the gods still existed above the heaven realm. At that time, the lords of the heaven realm and the deities of the god realm were still in the human realm. At that time, a strange person created the boundary-breaking talisman. Even 1,000,000 years ago, the boundary-breaking talisman was extremely rare in that era. This was because the boundary-breaking talisman had a magical effect. As long as the boundary-breaking talisman was activated, no matter how powerful the attacker's cultivation was, they would not be able to hurt the person enveloped by the boundary-breaking talisman. Chapter 908. At this very moment. That was what Yun Feng relied on. The boundary-breaking talisman. It was about to take him back to the ancient region's human world. Fang Yu couldn't hurt him at all. This was an iron law. Yun Feng couldn't wait to see Fang Yu's exasperated expression when he found out about this. You want to kill me? Fang Yu. Dream on. Unfortunately, everything didn't go as Yun Feng expected. While Yun Feng was still sneering, the crimson flame divine sword with raging flames easily penetrated the boundary-breaking talisman's power that enveloped Yun Feng. This legendary treasure, the boundary-breaking talisman, didn't seem to work so well in front of the crimson flame divine sword. At this very moment, the crimson flame divine sword broke the boundary-breaking talisman and slashed at Yun Feng's head without slowing down. No! How is this possible? This is a life-saving treasure that I exchanged for with my life savings, the boundary-breaking talisman. This obviously fulfills the requirements of the boundary-breaking talisman. How can the boundary-breaking talisman fail? Yun Feng's face was full of horror. At this moment, looking at the crimson flame divine sword and the 7-star great saint level Fang Yu, it was too late for Yun Feng to use any means to resist. Bam! Blood splattered everywhere. On the heaven-reaching steps, Yun Feng's head fell to the ground heavily. Along with it, it fell, and Yun Feng's headless corpse. In the sky above, from the bright sun and the cold moon, 2 pitch-black figures finally walked out slowly. At this moment, the 2 extraterrestrial evil souls who pretended to be mysterious finally appeared. At this moment, an old sigh sounded from the 2 extraterrestrial evil souls. It was full of awe and fear. Very few people in the world know about it. 1,000,000 years ago, when the divine realm still existed in the ancient region, the name of the eccentric person who created the boundary-breaking talisman. That eccentric person was called the Crimson Flame War God in the Divine Realm. Boom! As soon as this voice was heard, it completely destroyed the last bit of vitality that Yun Feng forcefully attached to her head. So, the person who created the Boundary Breaker Talisman was the previous owner of the Scarlet Fire Divine Sword, the Scarlet Fire War God. They are the gods of the Divine Realm. According to legends, they possess the power of laws that surpass the power of the martial gods. Ah! Luck has never been on my side. Yun Feng felt extremely sad. But in the end, he had no choice but to swallow his last breath, and his soul dissipated. Boom! At this moment, the personal disciple of Palace Master Ghost, Yun Fan, had completely perished. At the same time, after 10 breaths of time, Fang Yu's cultivation base as a 7-star Great Saint was finally exhausted. Not bad. We've achieved our goal. Fang Yu let out a long sigh of relief, and looked at the 57 Saint Realm murderers who were hiding in the distance for fear of being implicated. The oath of the contract had already been made. Under the rules of the system, Fang Yu could clearly sense the connection between himself and the 57 Saint Realm murderous beasts. At this moment, the 57 Saint Realm murderous beasts were simply 57 dogs raised by Fang Yu. What did Fang Yu want them to do? They had to do something. In this Lingyun universe, even though Fang Yu had lost his 7-star Great Saint cultivation base, he could still sweep across the Lingyun universe. Let's see what treasures Yun Feng, who came from the martial god overlord force, has left on him. Hopefully, there are more glazed crystals. Fang Yu touched Yun Feng's corpse. Killing and arson was a golden belt. It was fine if it was an ordinary cultivator. Of course, Fang Yu would not let go of such a personal disciple of the martial god overlord force. Very soon, a pitch-black storage ring appeared in Fang Yu's hand. There were a lot of miscellaneous items in it, including more than 1,000,000 Xian crystals. However, there were no treasures like the Essence Soul Pearl or the Boundary Breaker Talisman. That being said, it was better than nothing. You two, how dare you show yourselves? Aren't you trying to kill me with the help of others so you can steal the Heaven Palace key? At this moment, Fang Yu had finished dealing with everything. Only then did he raise his head. His eyes contained a cold glint as he looked coldly at the two evil souls. As someone who lived in the ancient domain, Fang Yu knew a little about the legends of the 3 supreme martial gods, and he'd observed the statues of the 3 supreme martial gods in various places. These 2 extraterrestrial evil souls were truly laughable to the extreme. They were not Heaven Highness martial gods, but the remnant will of the Xiantian martial god. They had purposely disguised themselves as the 2 strongest martial gods and tried to trick him by pretending to be the remnant will of the martial gods. Since we know you're not an ordinary cultivator from the lower realm, but the successor chosen by the experts of the martial god realm like the Crimson Flame Battle God, we wouldn't dare to trick you. At this moment, the 2 extraterritorial evil souls' words were filled with fear and trepidation. When they spoke to Fang Yu, their tone was filled with respect. At this moment, many of the great saints present still believed that these 2 evil souls were the remnant thoughts of the 2 supreme martial gods. All the great saints behaved respectfully in front of the remnant wills of the 2 martial gods. They did not dare to offend them. However, the remnant wills of the 2 martial gods were respectful to Fang Yu, a mere cultivator from the lower realm. All the great saints present were in an uproar. How is this possible? No matter what, the 2 supreme martial gods were once peerless experts in the human world. Why are they so respectful to a cultivator from the lower realm? No. The martial god realm. This Fang Yu was actually related to the legendary realm of the gods. How is this possible? Countless people gasped in shock and gasped in shock. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate Fang Yu anymore. Even though Feng Yu's cultivation base and aura were only at the peak Great Venerate level, the eyes of the great saints present were filled with reverence, just like before. Ha ha! Feng Yu sneered at the two evil spirits from the outer realm. He wondered if the crimson flame divine sword in his hand could destroy their divine souls. At the same time, Feng Yu was also surprised. The crimson flame battle god was a god from the martial god realm. It seemed that, at his peak, he was above the martial god realm. He was a terrifying existence above the martial god realm. The two evil spirits from the outer realm seemed to have sensed Feng Yu's killing intent. They became even more fearful. Therefore, they hurriedly spoke. To show our sincerity, we're willing to tell you the location of the martial god battlefield, the greatest opportunity in the Lingyun world. I'm sure you've obtained a great opportunity in the martial god battlefield. It might even be easy for you to reap the benefits from the two. The two martial gods that the evil spirits from the outer realm mentioned were the two martial gods who were still alive, the Heaven Martial God and the Xiantian Martial God. The martial god battlefield. Feng Yu's eyes glittered. He could not help but feel intrigue. After all, he had come to the Lingyun mystical ground not only to avoid trouble, but also to visit the martial god battlefield. Since he had come to the Lingyun mystical ground, wouldn't it be a waste if he did not visit the martial god battlefield? Chapter 909. Tell me, where is the battleground of the Einherjar god? Feng Yu's eyes sharpened. At this moment, Feng Yu was not the only one. When they heard about the war god battlefield, all the great saints present, including the remnants of the heavenly palace and the experts of the three tribes, pricked up their ears to listen in. 100,000 years ago, there was an internal strife that led to the destruction of the heavenly palace, the most powerful force in the human world. It led to the collapse of a corner of the ancient world. In the battleground of the Einherjar god, there were many corpses and inheritances of the peak heavenly emperors of the heavenly palace. In the sky above, great saints like them didn't have much hope of obtaining the two Einherjar gods' inheritances. Now, if the battleground of the Einherjar god appeared, they might be able to get a share of it. The battleground of the Einherjar god. The battleground of the Einherjar god is, the two extraterritorial evil souls were filled with fear and trepidation. Just as they were about to say where the battleground of the Einherjar god was, buzz. It was as if they had sensed something. The two evil souls from the outskirts paused and stared at Feng Yu. Their faces were filled with astonishment and disbelief. Impossible! Why don't I sense the aura of the scarlet fire divine seal on you? Damn it! Brat from the lower realm, you don't even have the slightest bit of relationship with the deity realm. The scarlet fire divine seal didn't pass it to you either. You're not the successor of the god realm. You must have gotten the scarlet fire divine sword from somewhere else. How dare you lie to us? The two extraterritorial evil souls were furious. Without the scarlet fire divine seal, he had no connection to the terrifying god realm. It was just the scarlet fire divine sword. Why should they be afraid of Feng Yu? He was just an ant from the lower world. Even with the suppression of the heavenly palace's key, they could still kill him if they wanted to. Being toyed with like this in public caused the two evil souls from the outer realm to be furious to the extreme. They only wanted to kill. When did I say that I have a connection to the legendary temple of the gods, and that I received the scarlet fire divine seal's inheritance? In response, Feng Yu's expression was indifferent as he slowly responded. Boom. Such words. This made the two extraterrestrial evil souls even more furious. The surging crimson sun divine fire and myriad chills divine ice in the sky went berserk, descending upon the 99,999 steps of the path to heaven. Such a shocking change instantly caused all the great saints in the surroundings to be shocked and furious to the extreme. If it weren't for the fact that they couldn't defeat Feng Yu, all the great saints present would have swarmed forward and killed Feng Yu. Unfortunately, they didn't dare. The 5-star Great Saint, His Highness Ghost Yunfeng, possessed an origin soul pearl that contained an attack from a 3-star Great Emperor. Even so, Yunfeng was killed by Feng Yu. If they were in Feng Yu's shoes, they would have died even faster. They were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Facing the surging crimson sun divine fire and myriad chill divine ice, they dodged in fear, afraid that they would be turned into ashes if they touched them. When the city gates catch fire, the fish in the moat suffer. At this moment, even as strong as the great saints, they couldn't interfere in the fight between Feng Yu and the 2 remnant spirits. They could only dodge in fear, afraid of being affected by the fight. With the heavenly palace key protecting me, do you think you can kill me? If you could, I'm afraid you 2 extraterrestrial evil souls would have done it long ago. If you want to use the Crimson Sun Divine Fire and Myriad Chill Divine Ice to kill the others, I have no objections. After all, their lives have nothing to do with me, and they can't threaten me. Feng Yu's voice was cold, and he continued to provoke the 2 extraterrestrial evil souls. On the system interface, the map page of the Slaughter treasure chest was refreshed gradually. At this moment, 2 illusory treasure chest images appeared, and these 2 images represented the 2 extraterrestrial evil souls. However, the strange thing was that the treasure chest images of these 2 extraterrestrial evil souls weren't of any grade from junk treasure chest to supreme treasure chest. The treasure chest images of these 2 extraterrestrial evil souls were emitting crimson light. Interesting. A crimson slaughter treasure chest. Feng Yu's eyes lit up and his interest was piqued. He wanted to see what he could get from this strange crimson slaughter treasure chest after harvesting these 2 extraterrestrial evil souls. Ah! Little ant, how dare you look down on us? At this moment, these 2 extraterrestrial evil souls were finally enraged to the limit. Their faces were filled with murderous intent that was as ferocious as evil spirits. Are you finally angry enough to kill me? I'd like to see what you can do to kill me. Feng Yu's eyes flashed. He didn't dare to be careless in the face of these 2 extraterrestrial evil souls. His mind was tense, and he was already holding a special card in his hand. However, it was also at this moment, boom, in the direction of the 3 tribes of the Sky Palace Remnants encampment, a loud explosion resounded in all directions. Then, countless bodies of the Sky Palace Remnants exploded, and their blood soared into the sky. Blood and chi soared into the sky. It was the first time such a terrifying situation had occurred in Lingyun heaven and earth. It meant that at least 30,000 cultivators of the Sky Palace Remnants had been sacrificed. Open it. Battle God Battlefield. In the direction of the 3 tribes of the Sky Palace Remnants, a crazy voice sounded. It was the soul-refining demon emperor who had disappeared. Everyone present was at the Great Saint Realm. Although this voice sounded tens of thousands of miles away, they could still hear it very clearly. Boom. Almost 80 to 90% of the people of the Sky Palace Remnants and the 3 tribes were dead. It was this blood sacrifice of 30,000 cultivators of the Sky Palace Remnants that blew open the door of the Battle God Battlefield. Above the sky, a towering door emerged, exuding an ancient aura and a smell of blood that couldn't be washed away. There was no mistake. This was the legendary Battle God Battlefield. 100,000 years ago, the place where the 2 Battle God factions led the cultivators of the Sky Palace to die. There were countless treasures and opportunities inside. The Battle God Battlefield has appeared? Many of the great saints present were breathing rapidly. However, the eyes of the great saints of the 3 tribes turned red. Among them, the leaders of the 3 tribes, Gui Xian, Ku Xian, and Black Sage, were the most furious. They had led all the great saints of their tribes to this place to seize the inheritance of the Battle God ancestor. Who would have thought that someone would take advantage of the fact that the tribes were empty and raid their lair? You're courting death. Bastard. We cultivators of the Sky Palace remnants have been struggling at death's door, unable to leave for 100,000 years. How could such a small number of people be sacrificed? Kill him. I, Black Sage, must find him and kill him. Black Sage, who was clad in a pitch-black armor, was roaring madly in all directions. His face was filled with murderous intent toward the soul-refining demon emperor. There was no hesitation. This was one of the strongest cultivators in Lingyun heaven and earth, Black Sage. Riding the wind, he abandoned the inheritance of the battle god ancestor and went straight for the soul-refining demon emperor. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.